Okay, Aaron, has everybody been admitted?
Yes.
All right, terrific. So welcome everybody to the March 25th, 2021 meeting of the City of Troy Planning Commission. Today I will take a roll call. Barbara Higbee.
Here.
Suzanne Spellin.
Here.
Sarah Wangert.
Here.
Anthony Moen. Anthony Moen is not here yet, and Deirdre Rudolph is here. So 4 members of the board are here, so we do have a quorum. Also in attendance is our city engineer, Aaron Vera, who is the executive secretary for the commission. Also legal counsel, Andy Brick. And is there anyone else I've missed? Stephen Strickman. And is James here or no?
Strikeman.
I know, I messed up.
I don't believe James is on the call. Chair.
I got it on the second try. All right, so James is not here. Okay, perfect. So moving on to our first item on our agenda, consent agenda, item PL 2018-0002, 141 Congress Street. This is an extension of a site plan approval. City Station North LLC is proposing to construct an approximately 90,000 square feet of residential and 50,000 square feet of commercial and 160 approximately parking spaces in a multi-zone. The applicant is seeking a 12-month extension. Aaron, is there anything regarding this case that the board should be aware of?
I don't think so, Chair. The developer ran into some financing issues and things like that, but it looks like it's all coming together, and they're just looking to extend this to get going.
Okay, thank you. So is there a motion?
This is Barb. I'll move we grant the extension.
Is
I
there?
second.
Thank you, Suzanne. Going to a vote. Barbara Higbee,
Yes.
Suzanne Spellin,
Yes.
Sarah Wangert.
Yes.
I assume Anthony is still not here. Is that correct? Yes.
That is correct, yes.
And Deirdre Rudolph, yes. Motion carries 4-0. All right, moving on to new business. Case number PLPC 2021-0006. Location is 770 Pauling Avenue. Site plan review. J&J Apartments LLC is proposing to occupy a former commercial space with 3 residential units. Aaron, I'll ask again, is there any staff report or anything on this case that the board should be aware of?
Well, obviously you guys have seen this project before in a slightly different configuration than what's in front of you this evening. The applicant has provided some additional information about the structure. I believe they provided a structural assessment, and they also reduced the pavement in the rear of the site and increased green space. And then they provided some, I think, revised architectural elevations as well.
All right, is the applicant here tonight?
Yes, I'm here.
Chair Anthony Moen is joining right now.
Okay, perfect, thank you. I'll wait till he's on. Tell me when he's.
Hi, Anthony. Can you hear us?
I can see him.
Hi, sorry about that. I was looking through my email to the Zoom link.
All right, hi, Anthony. All right, so is the applicant here?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
So I guess if you could explain what changes you made since the application was last year?
Yeah, so I'll go over some changes that we made real quick. some of the things we've done was we kind of repositioned the parking in the rear of the building. We've included 6 spaces and 1 handicap space. We're removing 4,600 square foot of blacktop, bringing the total green space to 7,000 square feet. We're adding picnic tables and bike racks on the rear lawn area, and that's 7,000 square foot. And then in the front, we're going to remove the patio, put 3 sidewalks attached to the city sidewalks, which will then infill with more green space between each sidewalk and have landscape going across the front of the building. In the front of the building, to have a more residential appearance, we've put in 3 canopies over each door as the entrance doors. And then, you know, that's pretty much the depth. Tony has done a structural report, which I believe was submitted to the building department, and I think Aaron has that as well. So those are kind of some of the major changes that we've made to this concept.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone from the public here tonight that would like to comment on this proposal?
I'd like to speak.
Yes, please. Please state your name.
My name is Carlos Sorianto. I live at 2 Adair Road in Troy. I'm a resident of District 6, which this project is in. I also work for the building department in Troy. I'm here to support the project. That building's been vacant for more than 5 years now. And next to it is a zombie property that's been vacant for more than 10 years. I mean, that area, you know, those 2 spots right there has been a blight for some time now. I think what Joe's proposing is a great asset to the neighborhood. It's a great residential area. It has every amenity a resident could ask for. And I also believe in the fact that, you know, zoning board has approved these 3 residential areas. I think granting him approval with any other stipulations and allowing Aaron, the city engineer, and myself review the rest of the project would be a great asset for taxpayers and us residents here on the east side. I also think Joe's a great landlord, and I'm here to support his project in entirety.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else here tonight? All right, I would ask if any of the members of the board have any questions or comments at this time.
I think it's a great improvement on the last iteration of the plan. I'm very happy to see the porticos over the doors and a lot of new green space. So kudos for that.
All right, any other comments? All right, so this is a unlisted action. I'm looking at the seeker documentation. So do we have a motion with respect to seeker?
This is Barb. I move approval of the seeker as an unlisted action.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
All right, going to a vote. Or I'm looking for, so, okay. Yes, Barbara Higbee,
Yes,
Anthony Moen,
Yes.
Sarah Wangert,
Yes.
Suzanne Spellin,
Yes,
Deirdre Rudolph, yes. Okay, moving on. We're completed with seeker. Is there a motion for approval or denial of this project?
this is Barb. I'll move approval of this project.
Thank you,
This is
Barb.
Anthony. I'll second.
Anthony second. Going to a vote. Barbara Higbee,
Yes,
Sarah Wangert,
No.
Anthony Moen,
Yes.
Suzanne Spellin,
yes,
and Deirdre Rudolph, no. Motion carries 3-2. So thank you.
Madam Chair, before we move on to the next one, can I just briefly state, Carlo, who provided comments, did identify himself as an employee of the city of Troy and a member of the building department. Since he did provide comments in support of this project, which is great, you know, he's representing his neighborhood and supporting a project he believes in, perfectly acceptable for him to do. I appreciate the comments. But because he is now on the record supporting it, I think he will be precluded in the building department from reviewing it going forward, which isn't a problem. There's other people that can review it, but just for the record, because he did state he wanted to review it, I don't think it'd be able to be on his desk at this point, but we'll get it reviewed through that department, and I do appreciate his comments.
Okay, great input. Thank you very much. All right, moving on. We have old business concept updates, PLPC 2020-0036, Cemetery Road and Boradale Drive, lot line adjustment, site plan review, and seeker determination. Keystone Homes is proposing to construct 96 apartment units, 3 buildings in a planned development P zone. The applicant is represented by Nicholas Costa of Advanced Engineering and Land Surveying. So again, Aaron, is there anything you would like to kick off this before I turn it over to the applicant?
I think I'll let the applicant speak first and then chime in afterward.
Okay, great. I see you, Nick.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
Nick Costa from Advanced Engineering. Thank you. We've been in front of the board a couple different times with this project. If I can, Aaron, can you let me share the screen so I can bring up some exhibits?
Certainly, just bear with me a moment.
Yeah. So the last time you saw it, I think, was back in September, either September or October. And the project was previously approved for when actually Aaron was the chair or was on the board, and even previous to that, just as a little history, the site is approved for 19 residential lots with 1 city street, Boradale Drive, I believe it is. There's a little bit of a recap on the history of the site, but we're back in front of you with a revised, layout, revised buildings and revised layout. And let me see if I can share my screen and get. Can everybody see the aerial view of the site?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So the site is located on Cemetery Road, and also it's at the corner of the intersection of Gurley with the cemetery. It's the southwest corner, and the proposal is still to come in very similar to what the original Boradale Drive was approved for. And then the construction of the 3 buildings with 30 units per building for a total of 90 units. Let me get, this is a little more expanded view of that aerial plan. There is sanitary sewer at this corner. When the adjacent development was done, there was sanitary sewer left to be extended to serve the residential development, which was approved soon after this development went in. So they did leave municipal sanitary sewer that we are going to also extend to serve these 3 buildings. There is water. There's water up in Gurley, and there's water also on Cemetery Road that would provide, that we would loop into the development and provide municipal water for the site. So the site is being developed for 3 buildings with apartments. They would have parking. The parking would be next to the buildings, obviously. there would be a sidewalk that is being proposed, to serve the buildings for people that may, not drive. And then there's the dumpster pads that are shown here. And there's a stormwater detention basin. So what we're doing is we're capturing the stormwater runoff from the parking lot and from the 3 buildings. And we have a swale back here that picks up the drainage, and the swale brings it over to a stormwater practice and lets it out at a reduced rate out to the street where there is a stormwater system. There's also, I want to point out to the board that there is a retaining wall that's necessary right here because of the grade change between these developed lots and our new grading. That retaining wall starts at 2 feet on both ends and ends up being about 8 foot high right in this general area. I want to just let you know that, and I know that a lot of the board members weren't on the board at the time that this parcel was approved previously. At the previous proposal, we were putting a retaining wall all the way from one end of this site all the way to here. So the impacts to the parcel have been greatly reduced by going to these to these buildings instead of the other buildings were six apartment buildings with 12 or 14 units per building. I can't remember exactly how many there were in each building. And they were on both sides, that resulted in a lot more site disturbance than what this is proposing. So I want to show you some elevations of the proposed building. There's the front and rear building elevations. There is a combination of materials with some stone down at the lower portion, and then there's vinyl, and then there's some cedar shakes, and there's an elevation of how these buildings would fit into the topography of the site. Just to give you the topography of the site is, from Gurley Avenue, everything is going down to these developed lots. The topography just consistently drops across the parcel. So these buildings would work into that existing topography to take advantage of reducing the amount of grading by having an entrance at this level, and the back area would be at a different elevation. The interior floor plan would be a finished elevation here, and then the basement, the lower level would be at this elevation, about 10 feet in elevation difference between all of the buildings. So those are pretty much the summary of the changes that have been done on the site. The zoning of the site is planted development. So it is allowed, what is being proposed is allowed in this zone. And as I mentioned before, all of the utilities to serve the site with municipal water and sanitary sewer are there. And we are managing the stormwater by putting in one of the New York State DEC approved practices and taking the stormwater into this existing storm system that already exists in Cemetery Road. So at this point, if there are any questions, I'd be more than happy to try to answer those. I think that there are some other people from the development team from Keystone that are on the call. So if there is any questions that may come up that I don't have an answer, then I would reach out to them, for an answer. So, but that's, I'll turn it back to the board for any questions.
Okay, thank you.
You all.
I would ask at this time, is there anyone here from the public that would like to make comment regarding this proposal tonight? Okay, I'd ask if there are any board members that have any questions or comments regarding this proposal.
This is Barb. I guess I do have a couple questions. Now, the site that you're talking about developing, is that uphill from the townhouses?
Yes, the grade, let me bring up the topography. The grade, Gurley Avenue is really, when Gurley Avenue was built, it was built as a plateau or a terrace, and then it drops from Gurley all the way down to the townhomes that are here, and Lori Jean Place, which is located here, that's much lower than Gurley Avenue. So everything, even above Gurley Avenue, everything is coming towards the west.
Okay.
And I'm sorry.
Go ahead with the next. Yeah.
Yeah, well, what I was going to say is we did meet with the neighbors. There was a meeting with the neighbors, and they endorsed the plan, this plan, and they were really happy about the proposed swale that we're putting in back here that goes from this end, all the way to, from the beginning of the boundary line where the sanitary sewer is going to come in. There's going to be a swale that's going to run right across here and bring the water, the stormwater runoff to this management practice that we're installing here. So they were really happy that all that water that currently goes to through their backyards and out onto Lori Jean Place would be managed, not to go into their backyards and be captured and managed on site, and then released at a control rate out to Cemetery Road.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I guess I would just ask Aaron, were there any, has city departments reviewed this at all, DPU or any of the other?
The applicant's working through that process. We have sent this out for third-party engineering review, so that process has started. As the applicant was saying, there were 19 lots planned here at one time, so the sewer capacity is likely present. It would be more of a review of the stormwater.
Right.
Um,
Right. Anything else? I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No, I think the other issue that came up was whether or not the road itself, the paper street, exists. If the city could, it was never built, so this I can't assume that the city took that on, but we have to look into that. So
Yeah.
that's another. It's really just a paperwork issue.
Yeah, Aaron, if I may jump in on that, we will be doing some research to obtain. We do have the original design drawings for that subdivision, but we don't have the filed subdivision drawing. So we'll be doing a little research about what was filed, if anything was filed, and then we will have to do a lot line adjustment to remove the 19 lots, and also that right of way, that paper street that that Aaron just mentioned.
Okay, another question I just have, I know it's an allowed use. Are there any zoning variances that you need for this project?
The only thing that we're looking, and I don't know if it's a planning board or planning commission variance, or if it's something that we have to go to the zoning board of appeals, is that the city has a requirement of 2 parking spaces per unit. We have about a little bit less than 1.5. And in our narrative, we also mentioned that the average for apartments across the US is about 1.25, 1.25 per apartment.
Okay, thank you. And then I guess the only other thing is, Andy, if you could confirm again the seeker classification on this project, it's listed as unlisted, but if you could take a look at that.
Sure. And to Nick's question about where he needs to go for the parking deficiency, I believe it would be a zoning board of appeals request for a variance. I don't think the planning commission has the authority to waive that parking requirement because it comes from the zoning code itself. I'll
Okay.
confirm that for Nick though.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else you need from us tonight?
No, I think that, we wanted to bring the board up to date as far as the changes, the modifications that have been made to the plan since the last time we were in front of you. And I'll get together with Andy and do the paperwork for the variance. And I think that we need to do that first, and then come back to you with the once we're through with the detailed design of the site.
All right, sounds good.
Okay, thank you.
So with that, we'll move on. We have our site plan review, case PLPC 2020-0063, 37 125th Street and 2 Northern Drive, subdivision, site plan review, and seeker. Old Daily Custom Catering is proposing a lot line adjustment and addition to an existing structure. The existing and proposed use is a catering business. The applicant is represented by Troy Architecture Practice.
Hello, this is Lisa here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Steph Petta is delayed, but I think I can adequately represent her. But if she is able to join us, then she certainly can better speak to her experience when she first moved into the building and the agreements that she had with the city. So we've been before you for conceptual review before, and we took in your comments and walked the site, and Steph and her husband looked at what they could do to accommodate your concerns. And I'd say the biggest one that they were able to do is on Northern Drive, they reduced that existing curb cut by almost 40 feet, I would say, 30 to 40 feet. And they're proposing to extend the sidewalk to reduce the width of that curb cut back there. So it'll be a 30-foot curb cut, and that is for trucks to come and go for deliveries on that side of the building. And then on the 125th Street side, we extended the existing sidewalk. So there was a sidewalk that runs in front of the house to the east, and it just kind of dies near the dumpsters. And we extended it and made it connect up to the paving that the dumpster area is sitting on. And maybe I should have just refreshed your memory on what the project was. So the Old Daily Catering is located in this building on the point, and they need more cooler space, walk-in cooler space. They're proposing to build an enclosure around these walk-in coolers. So the coolers are in the building right now. They want to expand their kitchen and push the coolers out and build a nice enclosure around the coolers. In order to do this, they would like to buy the property next door, which has a sizable lot, and slice off a piece of that lot and join it to the commercial property. And they have received zoning approval for changing the lot line and setback deficiencies, I think it was. Let's see. So, and then it was suggested, well, why don't you move the dumpsters across the street? They feel that would be dangerous. They put the dumpsters there at the city's, the city allowed them to do that when they bought the building. At the time, they did not own the parking lot across the street. They do own it now. But they're concerned that if they put it across the street, now their workers have to walk across the street with holding garbage or rolling garbage, and that's a dangerous situation. It's a very little used sidewalk because you get to the end of it out to Northern Drive, and it's kind of a dangerous intersection to be walking. So pedestrians really don't choose to use this sidewalk if they can avoid it. I mean, certainly we're making it a little better by having more continuity and less curb cuts, but it's not the preferred path for people to walk because it's so dangerous, and putting the dumpsters across the street would make it difficult on the employees to get the garbage out. Yeah, so I think that's good. I can answer any questions that you might have, unless Steph has joined and wants to speak.
Okay, thank you. So I will ask if there's anyone here tonight from the public that has any comment regarding this proposal.
Dee Dee, this is James Rath from the planning department. We had gone back and forth a handful of times now with the applicant here on the issues regarding the sidewalk and the dumpster. And I just want to emphasize, I mean, I see the plan being shown as not showing, I don't see where the sidewalk is. Okay, the new sidewalk that Aaron's cursor is over now. I simply don't feel it's sufficient, insufficient improvement. The concept of the sidewalk or this pedestrian route is dangerous, and that's the reason why they can't move the dumpster is kind of ridiculous to me, because the dumpster itself and the lack of connection of that sidewalk on this parcel or adjacent to this parcel is a big reason why this is not a comfortable pedestrian route. We don't allow dumpsters to be stored in the right of way. That's something the Planning Commission has asked pretty much every applicant over the last few years to change when they come in with their site plan. I feel strongly that this case should be no different. An informal agreement with the city 20 years ago or however long ago, I certainly would not call that a sufficient reason.
Oh, you there, James?
I'm sorry. Yeah, my dog just started barking. But yeah, I mean, that's really all my comment. I mean, we've gone back and forth about these issues. The parking across the sidewalk is another big thing that we've tried to get away from. Something we don't allow really anywhere else. And yeah, our recommendation is that the applicant still has plenty to address before they are ready for an approval. The last thing that I'll add is just that the zoning board did discuss some of these issues. They did express concern about some of these factors, but they acknowledge as not under their jurisdiction to address them in their review. And the issues regarding the variances, there were no issues regarding the variances. So that's why they were issued an approval at the ZBA.
Okay, thank you. So is there any other comments from the public, or then I'll move it to the commissioners? I don't hear any. Commissioners, do you have any questions of the applicant or comments?
This is Sarah Wingert. I have one question, and I'm really just asking for a reiteration of an explanation. The purchase of 37 125th Street is for what purpose?
Hi, to be able to take a slice of that property and add it to the old Daly's property. So old Daley's property ends, I think, pretty much at the building. Yes,
Okay, but they're not
Yeah.
proposing to demolish the building.
no, no.
Okay.
And I would say, since I'm speaking and Steph can't be here, that she would speak passionately about how they're struggling to stay in business. And, this is part of trying to be ready for the recovery, take advantage of a downtime to make needed changes, come back strong. And, she would push back on and requirements that are expensive, and that she feels like she did in good faith with the city's approval when they moved into the building.
So I suppose my only comment is that if the city staff is not satisfied with the safety of this proposed layout, that concerns me. And doesn't give great confidence.
I
Good.
understand, but we've improved it from what it was. So we've reduced that curb cut on Northern Boulevard. Yet we're not talking about changing that parking situation at the door. And the part that we're adding towards the back of the building, there's nothing unsafe about the part that we're adding to the property. So yes, that's a decision you have to make, is whether or not you're require them to reconfigure that parking or move the dump.
So I have a question for James Rath, and that is, if it's appropriate for me to ask this, James, where do you think the dumpsters should go?
Well, I certainly try my best to stay away from designing applicants' projects for them. Interestingly enough, as well, I would add that the dumpsters probably should be where the addition of the building is being proposed, and that's probably where they should have been for the last 20 years. I'm saying 20 years just in context of the applicant. That's how long they've said they've had this agreement.
But they don't own that property, James.
Yes, I understand that. I understand citing dumpsters is tricky. We've talked about the issues along Northern Drive, but if they're going to be proposing an addition and after adjusting their lot line, I would say the addition would be more appropriate on the Northern Drive side, the north side of the existing structure, and the dumpsters and the other access points, or their utilities, walk-in coolers, these sorts of things that are shown in that northern triangle would be more appropriate on the east side of the structure. And again, it's not just the dumpster. It's also the angled parking going up to the front of the building. It's the lack of curb cuts on the corners. And we have discussed this with the applicant several times, and they were insistent that they went to the planning commission for to hear what the board would have to say.
All right, James, thank you. I really appreciate it. Sorry to put you on the spot. So why do we need this angled parking? I'll tell you, it's hard to review this project because it is, although it's small in scale, it's really complicated with the equipment and the various proposed additions, and not understanding the function of the facility and what the end goal is. We don't see access points to the building. We don't understand what is for customer access, if there is any. Where is the staff access? Where is delivery access? I see the word loading. I understand that, but then why do I have a piece of crushed stone, a little square of crushed stone next to what I think is a sidewalk? It just doesn't, it's not logical to me. I don't understand what's trying to be accomplished here.
Okay, so customers come in the door at the point where there's an arrow there. So by parking the way they do against the building, they're able to walk right over to that door on point without crossing 125th Street. The loading, so there's two kinds of loading. There's loading for supplies arriving and product that is leaving. So they happen on the two different sides of the building. That's why they, we stood there, we explored the idea of what happens if we put the addition on the north side of the building. And it didn't work for the way things are laid out inside. There is a kitchen set up in there already. What they're proposing is moving the walk-in coolers out of the way to enlarge the kitchen, not to completely redo the kitchen. So one side is for loading in and one side is for taking products out of the building.
Okay, which one is loading in and which, so it would be helpful to know which is which.
That's where Steph would be better. And she's trying to get in now to the meeting. I know she is.
Okay, and sorry if I'm asking a question that's too nitpicky for you to answer, but so which door do they want to bring garbage out of?
Well, it comes out right there on 125th Street next to the dumpster where it says loading.
Okay, so product
left.
comes out that door and so does garbage.
Yeah. Well, I don't know where the finished product comes out. I know that the garbage comes out of there.
Yeah, I have a question for Andy. So maybe I'm not understanding this properly, but these are existing parking spaces and existing dumpsters in this location, correct? So
That's my understanding, yes.
So,
That's correct.
so they're not proposing any changes to what's already been, I assume, approved and constructed in the past?
Correct.
Yeah,
I have
Dee
not
Dee,
seen-
Dee, this is Anthony. If you look at the photo that appears on page 12 of their submission, it shows the view down 125th Street as it is currently with cars parked in those spots.
Thank you. But so the issue is that they're not changing what's already there.
The applicant stated at the ZBA that the way it's designed currently was approved by the city prior. I believe it was 10, 20 years ago. I don't know. But they said everything is where it is because that's where the city told us to put it. I have no reason to doubt the applicant. I haven't seen an actual approval from 20 years ago, but I suspect that is entirely the case.
Okay.
However, I would make 2 points. The first is that they are now coming in and seeking approvals for an expansion of the structure, a lot line adjustment, and making changes to the property. Based upon that request for a new site plan approval, that opens up the existing site plan to review and analysis by the Planning Commission and adjustment by the Planning Commission because they're requesting to alter the site. You have the ability to look at everything. Also, I would point out that if what was authorized or requested by the city 20 years ago was not in compliance with code at the time, for whatever reason, it was not in compliance with the code, but they missed it. The applicant does not have a right to rely upon that mistake from 20 years ago to say they don't have to comply with the code now. If it was a code violation then and it inadvertently got missed and it was approved by mistake, the applicant doesn't have the right to rely upon it and say, well, now it's grandfathered. It's called not to over-lawyer it, but it's called the doctrine of equitable estoppel, where you would stop the municipality from claiming now you have to come into compliance. Case law is clear that does not apply to municipalities. So if they got it wrong 20 years ago, the applicant doesn't have the right to rely upon it to keep it in place now.
Okay, thank you. That was very clear. Okay, so there's no other issues besides this 125th Street. Is that correct, James?
Yeah, that's correct. We do not like to see the access on the way that it's proposed on Northern Drive. But again, I mean, as the applicant has pointed out, it's existing and they're improving it. That's certainly appreciated. And don't have an issue with it. I think it's the lack of curb cuts at the corners. It's the parking up to the building that goes across the right of way and reduces the on-street parking. And it's the lack, which includes the lack of sidewalk connection. And then it's the dumpsters in the right of way. Those are my concerns.
And the curb cuts at the corners, which corners have insufficient curb cuts?
Well, on their site plan, I don't see any, ADA compliant curb cuts, something that would be at the appropriate grade. And that would include a tactical warning strip for, other people who have different disabilities. And then, so either of those corners, I don't see on the site plan or on the images shown.
Okay, but you're looking at is it crosswalks across 120? I'm just trying to understand this, across 125th, or are you also looking across North?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
Okay, that's all right. I was just trying to figure out what I can't see from this. It looks like there's some, like I'm looking at 125th Street on the bottom. It looks like there's something being done at the corners, but I can't see what that is. I didn't know if there were some that were being proposed.
We don't have any plans to do work at the corner.
Okay.
So again, my concern is that, somebody in a wheelchair, somebody that's blind would not be able to use a train corridor.
Okay, so there's already dropped curbs at both corners. I'm looking online at it right now. I see sort of evidence of that on the left side of our site plan. The right side, not so much, but they are dropped curbs anyway.
Okay.
I'd also like to just point out, the applicant in this meeting and in the zoning board meeting is on the record themselves describing how dangerous they feel this route is for pedestrians. So I think the need is very clear from the city's perspective.
I'm here. I don't know if you can hear me.
Hi, Steph. Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. I had a really hard time. I apologize. I did catch the grandfathering and the part about, just because we did something we shouldn't have 20 years ago and they didn't catch it, doesn't mean they'll accept it now, except for that's everything that we did. We didn't do anything without the express, approval of the city or the directive of the city. Like the parking against the building was the city's directive, not ours. We were required to do it because we didn't own the parking lot across from us. And then we were also required to have a lease agreement to rent some spaces across the street from us. So everything we did was because the city required it, not because we wanted to do it.
And if I could just clarify, to be clear, what I said was if it was in violation of code 20 years ago. It's also entirely possible what the city required you to do 20 years ago met the code in place at the time. And
Right.
if it did meet the code in place at the time, then you would have grandfathered rights. It's only if they got it wrong on what the code required then that you wouldn't have grandfathered rights.
Okay.
Yeah, and I understand the applicant's perspective on this. I'm sympathetic to that. It's just that if we cannot change mistakes that we made 20 years ago, this board is going to have a lot of headaches ahead of us, right? We have learned from our mistakes, and it's about fixing them now. So I just don't think that's a sufficient reason to allow these conditions to continue.
So let me ask, are you suggesting we not park against the building anymore?
Yes, that's correct. I think there should be a pedestrian, a sidewalk across that area, and that I'm not against angled parking or even perpendicular parking, but it's clear that this parking is only for the private use and it's on public property. So it's a very strange juxtaposition that doesn't really work anywhere else in the city, or it should not work anywhere in the city, I should say.
And let me ask that if I don't put my walk-ins out over there and I leave it alone, then I can leave my parking there. You're conditioning me. In other words, if I want to do this, it's over a tit for tat. If I want to do the walk-ins, I'm going to have to stop parking.
So I'll say no. I mean, first of all, I'm not the person placing any conditions or approvals on this project at all. This is
Okay.
my recommendation as staff to the planning commission, and I'll let the planning commission speak for what kind of conditions they'll put on this. But you're here for a site plan review, and Andy can probably describe the process most accurately, and I'll let him do so. But your site plan is being reviewed, and these are issues that we have with your site plan, and
Sure.
that we've expressed, multiple times now.
I think that, I mean, given that, first of all, I'm having a very tough time even purchasing this property next door. There's a whole conflict going on with that. That said, I think that if I go back to my partners and say, in order to move the walk-ins in that direction, we have to eliminate all of our customer pickup zone and our loading zone, they're going to say, forget it. Because it would make it impossible for us to operate. Now we have nowhere to load our trucks. I mean, we won't. Where are we going to load? When customers pull up to pick up their food, they're going to be out in the line of traffic. And every time I back my box trucks up to load, I don't have a big enough loading zone. So, and
Can
we've
I
been
ask a
there.
question?
Yeah.
Why do you want to move the walk-in cooler?
Well, that walk-in cooler is inside the building right now. Pretty much that space takes up the interior of the building. And we need the space inside to cohabitate with the cookie business that was created during the pandemic. So we have things on the second floor that shouldn't be. They're too hard to carry down the stairs. And so we needed some more interior space, or sell and move out of Troy. And we live in Troy. We want to stay here. So
how does moving the walk-in cooler relate to the sidewalk and parking on 125th Street?
It's not that what it is that I'm trying not to gain something, more space in the kitchen, but then cripple my operation because I don't have my load. Those aren't employee spots. Those are spots that customers pull in safely off the street and we load food into their cars. It's where our catering team backs in vehicles and we fill them with food and they go out on delivery. So now we've lost our south side loading area. So I gained space in my kitchen to cook it, but now I've lost space outside in order to load it. So
the city would be able to provide you a loading zone along that the new curb line.
Yeah, I was just going to add that.
We're in traffic though, because there's problems with that. When we do our cookie pickups, there people coming around because it's one way, have to go around people, and I've got
well, we'd meet you halfway. There's 32 feet of street width there. That's two 12-foot lanes and an 8-foot parking lane. We could put on-street parallel parking all along 125th Street, sign you a loading zone, and you'd have all the parking you've got today, and there wouldn't be the conflict with the pedestrians.
Right.
Yeah.
So I put in a $5,000 overhang, so when it's raining, my crew isn't getting wet, and now they can't back up to the building. Am I going to be able to? That's my main entrance. It takes up 10 feet wide of right to the left of the dumpsters. That's our main entrance. So that has to have a cut there. I need to be able to pull my truck up underneath the overhang.
With all due respect, we have dozens, if not hundreds of businesses across the city that have to unload and load that aren't pulling right up to their structure, right? Like this is not a unique situation, but you have a unique site plan, and that's the issue. All the concepts you're describing are the same ones that we have an issue with, and you yourself have described as being a concerning corridor for pedestrians. That's kind of what this is all coming back to every time. It's that, yes, you guys are backing up right up to the building, and yes, that's an issue. That's a danger to people who are walking, and it's going across public property where there's meant to be a sidewalk.
Well, I mean, all I can say is it's possible we're just gonna sell the building now and move, because when I have, you know, a $40,000 wedding and its food is out on trays and now I have to drag it out into the street to load it in the snow and the rain because I can't get under my overhang, which was precisely built. So, you know, my servers aren't in their nice outfits getting a wreck. It just, you know what I mean? We didn't buy in downtown. We moved to this particular location because of, you know, working with the city on making a site that would work for our business. And I understand, I live in the city.
Yeah, you
I'm
could
all
use
for,
you could use
but-
a pop-up, right? Couldn't you use a pop-up tent to bridge the gap between the two? For the temporary condition of loading and unloading a vehicle?
we have food going in and out all day long. We have trucks delivering. It is a hardship. It is now I'm erecting a tent that could blow away. I apologize right now. I am remote. And I may lose power because it's sucking up so much of my phone. So I apologize if I disappear, but
Okay, well,
I wanted to chime in
that
and say it is a unique site, and I think that's the
is.
issue. If it were any sort of normal site, we wouldn't have this configuration. You wouldn't be loading from two different
No.
sides. It's just a unique site and a unique part of the city.
It is, and listen, there may be a house behind us, but it's very business centric. And in terms of pedestrian traffic, I mean, you can ask people from the neighborhood. We don't have a lot of walking traffic. When I talk about pedestrian safety, I'm meaning like, I don't know why anybody would want to walk that way. They don't walk that way. Maybe you're thinking, if we changed all they would walk this way, maybe, but it seems easier to address the other side of the road.
okay, I'd like to interject here. We have a very full agenda here tonight, and it doesn't sound like we're going to reach a conclusion on this project. It sounds like there needs to be more communication between Aaron and James and yourself. I don't know if a separate meeting could be set up.
Yeah, I think that might be I think we need to strategize, but you know, if we're not able to come up with something that I agree. I live in the city. I want it to be as nice a quality of life for everybody, you know. But I also don't want all of a sudden cripple a business that's been there for 20 years.
Yeah, we're absolutely interested in working with you. I mean, after the planning commission hearing that you were at the last time several months ago, Aaron and I both provided comments and asked you if you wanted to meet. So
Yes,
Madam Chair, I just want to be clear that, you know, we have attempted to meet with the applicant, but we haven't had any success in doing so.
Okay, thank you. Do any other commissioners have any questions or comments regarding this proposal tonight? Okay, well, it sounds like I would highly recommend that a meeting with engineering, city planning, and the applicant be held and to try to resolve these outstanding issues. It is a very difficult, unique site, and I would hope that, you know, that this can all be resolved.
Okay.
Okay, so we're saying that it's tabled for this evening?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, is there a motion from one of the commissioners?
This is Anthony. I move to table this, and I guess let's just table it, and we can put it back on the agenda when the applicant next wants it. So we're not to a date certain, not to next month.
Okay, great. Thank you, Anthony. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Suzanne. All right. Going to a vote. Suzanne?
Yes.
Sarah Wanger?
Yes.
Barbara Higbee?
Yes.
Anthony Moen?
Yes.
And Deirdre Rudolph, yes. Motion carries 5-0.
Thanks for your time.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, moving forward onto our agenda, we have PLPC 2020-0011, Kings Landing 2. This is site plan review and seeker determination. BDC Holdings is proposing to demolish 3 existing structures and construct a new 5-story building with 62 residential units and 2 levels of parking, 68 spaces. The applicant is represented by Nicholas Costa of Advanced Engineering.
Yes, good evening. Thank you again. We're here tonight to present the proposed Kings Landing 2 project. Cosmo Marfione, who's one of the managing members of BDC, will make that presentation. Thank you.
Hello, all. Happy spring, finally.
Hello.
Hello. Okay. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Wonderful. All right, so tonight, what I would like to do is just briefly go over the project again in brief, and just just put forth some of the 2 tasks that we were asked to provide from our last meeting. Have a discussion on those, and then conclude it, and then hopefully we can take action. Again, project highlights: northeast corner of Federal, New Federal Street and 5th Avenue in the B4 Central Commercial Zoning District. We are proposing 62 residential apartment units, which include 10 studios, 10 1-bedroom, 32 2-bedrooms, and 10 3-bedrooms. The current plan has room or is designed for 63 indoor parking spaces on 2 levels, one at ground level on 5th, which I'll show you, and the other one ground, a little bit below ground level in the alley. We have 5 outdoor parking spaces that we're proposing in the alley, about 2,100 square feet of retail space. We aim to activate the new Federal Street sidewalk, and we're also proposing to rehabilitate a city-owned parking lot on Jacob and 5th with 38 new parking spots for the community. And then, when the Federal Street project becomes available, we propose on adding 6 more parking spots in front of our buildings for that project. This is an aerial map of the surroundings. Project here is highlighted, if you see my mouse, on the corner of Federal and 5th. This is the city-owned lot on the corner of Jacob and 5th, which we plan to improve for the community. This is just a little zoom of our project. This is our first project here on King Street, which was completed. We're proposing the following traffic pattern of cars coming in from King Street and either going up a ramp into a 1st level parking or along the laundry place and down a ramp to the below parking, and then out again from the 1st level, out down the ramp and down laundry place and out to New Federal, or up the ramp from the lower parking and down into laundry place and out to Federal. So we are proposing no vehicle traffic going onto 5th, with the exception of maybe some emergency vehicles if needed. There'll be knockable bollards here, but this curb cut, the current curb cut that's there right now will remain. And with this project, we are reducing, we are taking away the curb cut that now exists for that dilapidated garage that exists on 5th Avenue. These are the, again, the elevations of the building. This is on Federal, the top. The colored renderings is the new building proposed building. The black and white is what we've done with Kings 1. The bottom render elevation is on Fifth Avenue. What we've done is we've taken the 5-story piece along Federal, we turned the corner with it and then lowered it to 4 stories. And we provided a setback, which is around 25 to 30 feet from the facade on Fifth. This is the it's the elevation in the laundry place, which will be covered by our first building. Okay, as you can see, this is that ramp going into the first level of the garage, and this is the ramp going down to the second level, to the lower level of the garage. Another rendering. This is the northeast corner on looking at the building from Fifth and New Federal Street. As you can see, the 5-story gets reduced to 4-story well before the buildings across the street. This is a view from Federal and the intersection of Federal and Fifth from a person on the street. Okay. This is another view from a person across the street on Fifth Avenue in that parking lot. Okay. And this is a view from down Fifth Avenue looking south towards New Federal Street down Fifth Avenue. And same thing here. This is even further away from the building by the church, looking south towards New Federal Street. As you can see, there's plenty of windows we've incorporated into the design on this facade. What we've also done is incorporate a green screen, which will provide a nice backdrop to this piece of property that the church owns. And if they ever decide to improve it, we believe this will provide a nice backdrop to it. This is the lower level, which indicates the parking scheme, 38 spots. This is the upper level of the parking, which is at grade with Fifth Avenue, which indicates 26-car parking facility. Also, there's an entrance to the lobby on the northeast corner of Fifth and New Federal. I'll have they'll have just some an elevator lobby, an office, some space for packages, and so on and so forth. We've also included a second floor plan, for your viewing. Every floor will have a good amount of amenity space. This is the third and fourth floor plans, which will be exactly the same. And then the fifth floor plan, which shows that fifth story going away well before the beginning of the buildings across on Fifth, and probably even more than 30 feet, now that I look at it, away from the property line. We believe that we've taken all the comments from the board and the neighbors, the main comments: traffic on Fifth Avenue, parking, crime, and bulk, and we've addressed all those issues. Now, as of last meeting, we've also believed we addressed the historical preservation issue, but we were asked by the board to provide a phase 1A archaeological study. We've asked by the board to provide a third-party property condition and historic summary report. And also what we've done is we've taken those two reports and we've provided a economic summary if we were to rehabilitate the buildings based on the property condition, based on the codes, okay, and based on getting certain rents that we would need to maximize the rent so that we could make the most from the rehab. Okay, so we've submitted a phase 1A, states that there's no other There's no archaeological artifacts, and there's no other studies that need to be conducted. And then we also provided a property condition assessment that talks about the interior of the properties. Are they very dilapidated? No much historical value to the interiors, the exteriors, the fronts and the sides are in a little bit better condition. Again, the back of these several of these buildings were later added on with different structures that are not to code and would have to totally be demolished if we were even to contemplate a rehabilitation. And I have our professionals here if the board has any questions, but I don't want to get into their report, as I believe you've had a chance to read them. We did an economic analysis, okay, based on what we have thus far in the land and the development and what we think the hard cost would be and some idea on soft costs, which seems pretty realistic at $30 a square foot. We believe that this project, in order to rehab it, maximize the rents and bring it up to today's codes, would be a $4.15 million project. We ran a pro forma on it, and obviously, I have 3 years here, and even with a 6.5 cap, which we probably would never achieve, we're getting a projected value of right under $1 million, which obviously makes no sense, as it would take more than 4 million. Our report shows a pro forma analysis that goes out 20 years, and we never get to that number. And as you can see, we want to rehab these apartments. If we had to rehab them, we would rehab in a way that we could maximize the rents. These are big rents: $850 for a studio, $1,350 for a 1-bedroom, and $1,950 for a 2-bedroom. So we did not skim. We're not under. The numbers for the rent weren't under analyzed. They're big numbers, and that's why we have to make our rehabs accordingly. We have to propose a rehab that is based on according to what we think we could get for rents. So in summary, project benefits, and we went over this a million times. Commitment of another $60 million investment to the city of Troy and the community. Certainly consistent with the adopted community land use plan, enhancement of the city and Troy housing stock, 62 new households downtown, enhancing the vitality and creating more 24/7 atmosphere. We look forward to activating the new Federal Street retail corridor and sidewalk. We're creating 50 to 75 construction jobs, 8 full-time jobs between the facility and whatever the retail may be. It could be more if it's a restaurant. Obviously, there's always more folks there, but we took a good average. And we feel based on the people and that we could bring in, there could possibly be an injection of $1.37 million of discretionary spending within the greater Troy community area. These are not numbers that we've came up with. We've hired third-party firm to do this, and we're just summarizing their findings. Again, anticipated 50 to 75,000 in building department fees. We're adding a new parking facility at the intersection of Jacob and Fifth, which will provide another 38 spaces. We are contributing towards the new Federal Street revitalization plan. We're increasing the available parking to the community by 88%, and that number is based on what's currently available on the street. And we're adding 111 parking spots over and beyond what is required by code between our project, what we're proposing on the street, and the 38 that we're proposing on the federal, I'm sorry, on the 5th and Jacob Avenue lot. In conclusion, the project conforms with all zoning regulations. We're not asking for any variances. We've addressed all the CHA engineering comments, DPW, fire department. We've met with the neighbors before we even submitted formally for this project at least 3 times. We've addressed all the city engineers and city attorneys' comments on the EAF. And with this last go around, we've addressed the planning commission comments on property condition, historical value, and the scenario of going forward with the project with keeping the existing building or whatever is proper and legal. Tonight, we know that last meeting we closed the public hearing, and tonight we ask for you to vote on the negative declaration for SECRA and a positive vote for the site plan approval. With that, I'm here to answer any questions. Madam Chair, I think you're on mute.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. On mute again.
I just did it again.
You're off.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, thank you. I'd also like to make comment that we have received a lot of public comment regarding this proposal, written public comment. I would like to assure everyone in the public tonight that we have reviewed it, that we have received it. It has been provided to us. I would like to open this to the other commissioners. Do you have any questions of the applicant before we proceed? All right, I don't hear any questions. So Andy, what is the next step as far as seeker goes? I know it is a type 1 action. The applicant has submitted the part 1 form. I know that it did go through a coordinated review. Maybe you can just summarize for us where we are.
Sure, and let me add for the record, as we have in prior meetings, that Commissioner Higbee is recused from this application because she has offered comment as a member of the public. So just for the record, she is recused. The applicant submitted a full environmental assessment form, which was reviewed by both myself and Aaron Vera, who is the city's engineer. We concur with the information provided. We did require some adjustments and some changes with some things we disagreed with, but now it is in a form that we concur with. At this point, your next step in the process would be to make a secret determination based upon the information contained, not just in the environmental assessment form, but as well as the record of this proceeding and all materials submitted by the applicant, as well as the applicant and the applicant's team's testimony. What I can state to you is that, in my legal opinion, there is sufficient information in the record to support a negative declaration for this particular application. If the commissioners chose to consider a negative declaration, then it wouldn't necessarily be required to go through each question of the part 2 of the environmental assessment form, because in effect, what you would be saying is that for each and every question of that form, there would be at best a small impact to the environmental attributes set forth in that application. So if the board did think a negative declaration was warranted, then we wouldn't need to go through the form, because all the answers would be small, no impact or small impact. If the commissioners believe that there is the possibility for a potential impact that would be of moderate severity or a large impact, potential impact to the environment, then I would recommend that we go through the part 2 and address those particular questions. And we could do it, it's up to the commission. We could go through the whole form, or we could identify those areas where a commissioner thinks that there may be a moderate sized or large potential impact and address them directly. It's completely up to you guys. I had provided earlier today part 2 and part 3 to all the board members. I hope you received them. And I can answer any questions the board has at this point.
Thank you, Andy. So I would ask the other board members how you would like to proceed. Would you like to go through the part 2? And if, what, please provide some comment.
Edie, this is Sarah Winkert, and I would recommend that we go through the part 2 portion of the EAF.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Anyone else weighing in, or do you agree, or? All right, I guess we'll go through the part 2. So go through the various questions. Andy, how do you recommend that we do this?
Well, briefly, the way the form is set up is there are large questions, and if the large question is answered no, then you get to skip to the next large question. If the large question is answered yes, then you have to go through sub questions underneath that. So we can start and go through it, and for each question, and I can read them. I apologize in advance. The more I talk, the more my Long Island accent comes out, so I apologize in advance. But I can go through them, and then the board can discuss each and every one individually if you'd like.
Okay, that sounds terrific. So let's start with question 1, impact on land.
Okay, and so in this question, I'm reading it to the board, and the response from the board for this is a large question, a general question, would be a yes or a no. The proposed action may involve construction on or physical alteration of the land surface of the proposed site.
Okay, so everyone understands the question underneath the that main question are just kind of questions to help you facilitate answering the main question. So Andy read the main question, then there's an A through H. If we can answer that main question, then we don't need to do those sub questions. If we're struggling answering that question, we can go through the sub questions. So again,
and I would just point out, it's a yes or no, but this is kind of a trick question because I've never seen it answered no. It wouldn't be an action if it wasn't altering the site. So I think the board is constrained to answer yes for this particular question.
That makes sense. And this is Sarah Wenger. May I assume we're in a bit of a workshop mode, so we're permitted to have open discussion among the commissioners to resolve how we want to answer each and every one of these questions. Am I correct?
Yes, absolutely. And the final answer, if there isn't consensus of the board members, it would be by majority vote. So the discussion is absolutely imperative. Yes.
So again, if everybody could weigh in. So question 1, impact on land. The recommendation is yes. Any discussion before we move on? Everybody agree?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay. A, the proposed action may involve construction on land where the depth to water table is less than 3 feet. Based upon the FEIF, I don't believe that's the case in this instance.
I agree. Does anybody else have any comment?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Agree.
Okay,
The
terrific.
proposed action may involve construction on slopes of 15% or greater.
Oh, are we on, which one are we on? We're on 3, impacts on surface water.
No, we're on 1B.
Oh, we're going through all of the 1. Okay. I thought we had gone through 1.
No, because once it's yes, you have to answer all of them.
Oh, okay, it's a yes, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. You're right. Yep.
And so this is whether or not there's slopes of 15% or greater on the site. I think we all know there aren't.
Right. Yep.
The proposed action may involve construction on land where bedrock is exposed or generally within 5 feet of existing surface. Again, the information provided in the FEIF Part 1 doesn't represent that. So I would think it'd be no, but I would defer to Aaron if he has information that I don't, but I think the answer to that is no. Okay, next, the proposed action may involve the excavation and removal of more than 1,000 tons of natural material. And just as a cheat sheet, if you see the first column is the relevant question from the EAF, so you can jump to the EAF to find out what the applicant and how the applicant answered that question. And they answered that it would be less than 1,000 cubic yards would be excavated and removed. So this is 1,000 tons. They're saying it's going to be less than 1,000 cubic yards. So I think it would be no.
No.
I want to see you do the conversion.
Well, it would be more than 1,000 ton. Wouldn't it?
The answer, I would defer to the engineers. The answer is they're going to be removing less than 1,000 cubic yards.
Well, Dee Dee, you can
Yeah,
correct
so
me if I'm
that is-
wrong, but that's 120 pounds times
Correct.
27.
Yeah.
So that's over 1,000 ton. I think the point of this question is not the removal of over 1,000 tons automatically means you're going to an EIS or you're checking it. I think the question is that going to have a small impact or a large impact?
Agreed. And the environmental assessment form does state that the excavated materials during excavation are going to be utilized on site. So this isn't something that's being dug up and removed.
When I do the math, it's no.
Yeah, so it,
Okay.
yeah, so it's no.
Yeah.
Yep.
The proposed action may involve construction that continues for more than 1 year or in multiple phases.
Yes.
Okay, so it would be, would that have a small impact or a moderately to large impact on the environment?
The form suggests that the answer yes means moderate to large, but I don't know that that's really true.
Well, it's either no or small. That's one category, or moderate to large.
I would say this is Sarah's opinion and interpretation. I would say small impact.
And just based upon the durational aspect of it, Sarah, just so.
Right.
I would agree with you, but is that what you're saying? Okay. Is there consensus on the board? Okay.
So Sarah, you're saying because you expect that it would not continue for 1 year based on their EAS.
I would suggest, Anthony, I would suggest that even though the construction project will take more than 1 year, it will take a maximum of 2 years, which in my opinion is a small impact.
I'm having problems with that.
Yeah, it seems to me that the answer to that it may involve construction that continues for more than 1 year is yes, and that it could still be a moderate to large impact. I mean, I realize that there's going to be uncertainties here in terms of how long it lasts. And
Andy, would it be worth having the board consider other projects that have been approved within the city and the time frame those projects took in answering this question?
Sure, any information that the board can utilize to make the determination. I think there's board consensus that it may take more than a year, and then the question becomes, what level of impact could that possibly have on the environment? Would it be small, or would it be moderate or large? So whatever the decision is, there has to be an explanation on why we landed there. What would be the potential environmental impact that would be large from 13 months or 14 months of construction versus 8 or 9 months? What's the potential impact?
Does the question concern only the environment, or does it concern the environment and the people in that environment?
I don't think you can separate the two. I understand the question, but I think that the question is it going to annoy the neighbors for more than 1 year? It's whether or not there is a potential for a significant, a moderate or large adverse environmental impact as a result of the amount of time the construction will take place.
That's a tricky question.
Agreed.
Do we have to agree to each and every one of them, or make a decision on each and every one of them? Or can we skip this one and come back to it?
It may be more effective to skip the ones where we want to have follow-up discussion and come back and then get through the easier ones quicker. That may be a good way to do it.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah, I agree with that. Let's move on.
F, the proposed action may result in increased erosion, whether from physical disturbance or vegetation removal, including from treatment by herbicides.
Probably not.
I tend to think no as well.
Okay. The proposed action is or may be located within a coastal erosion hazard area. I think under the DEC website, if it was, it would automatically get flagged in here as a yes. And it isn't. So I don't believe it's in a coastal erosion hazard area.
Okay.
All right. So that is large question 1 and the subset. We have 1 to come back to. The large question number 2, and this is back to the yes or no question, the impact on geological features. The proposed action may result in the modification or destruction of or inhibit access to any unique or unusual land forms on the site. The examples they give are cliffs, dunes, minerals, fossils, or caves.
I believe that's a no.
It's a no.
No.
And so that gives us the ability to skip right over the subset of questions. And we're on to number 3, impacts on surface water. The proposed action may affect one or more wetlands or other surface water bodies. The examples they give are streams, rivers, ponds, or lakes.
No.
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 4, impact on groundwater. The proposed action may result in new or additional use of groundwater or may have the potential to introduce contaminants to groundwater or an aquifer.
I think no.
I think no.
Okay, no.
And I don't believe city water comes from groundwater. I think it's reservoir based, so.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay, so then now we're on to large question 5, impact on flooding. The proposed action may result in development on lands subject to flooding.
So I would ask, where is are we, Aaron, or do we know where the 100-year floodplain is? Are we in it at all?
I believe the answer to that is no, but you should look at E2I and E2J from the long form. I don't have that in front of me at the moment. I'll grab it.
I've got all sorts of forms in front of me. Hold on a second, let me get to it. So floodplain E2J.
It was not in the documents from this this month's meeting, as it hasn't been
I
revised.
actually have a hard copy here. I'm just flipping through it.
The answer is no. It's not within the 100-year. It's within the 500.
It is within the 500.
Page 11 of 13 on part 1.
All right.
Okay, so that's number 5.
That's question C, the proposed, I don't think this is an issue, but it may result in development within a 500-year floodplain is C of that.
So when considering an impact, I think the board should consider the amount of grade change that's proposed.
I also don't know that a 5-year floodplain would constitute land subject to flooding.
Now I'm just looking at sub question C. That's what.
Well, no, those lands do have a chance of flooding. I think it's a 0.2% chance annually of flooding.
I don't think it's an issue. I just wanted to make sure that we're.
Agreed.
Yeah, it seems as though the question to 5 has to be yes, then the question is just whether we think that the answer to 5C is that it's only a small impact.
Right, so yes, and then small impact on.
Okay. And then C, small impact. Okay. Number 6, impacts on air. The proposed action may include a state-regulated air emission source.
I think the answer is no. I would like other.
That answer is no.
Okay.
7, impacts on plants and animals. The proposed action may result in a loss of flora or fauna.
Based on the long form, that would also be a no. The only species I believe listed was the a sturgeon, and I don't believe that's located on the site.
Do other members agree?
Agreed.
Yes.
All right.
Agreed.
Number 8, impact on agricultural resources. The proposed action may impact agricultural resources.
No.
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 Okay, number 9, impact on aesthetic resources. The land use of the proposed action are obviously different from or in sharp contrast to current land use patterns between the proposed project and a scenic or aesthetic resource.
I would suggest no.
Okay with that?
I agree.
Okay.
Anybody else? Anybody object?
I'm not sure I understand it.
Yeah, let's make sure. Andy, can you explain it?
Sure. They want to know if what's being proposed is so out of character with what currently exists, and it is out of character between the current land use patterns and a scenic or aesthetic resource. So first you have to identify, is there a scenic or aesthetic resource in proximity to the project? And then is the land use proposed in such sharp contrast to that aesthetic resource?
Well, if the aesthetic resource is the buildings on the rest of the block, then I would have to say yes.
And potentially more than that, because there's the ability to view the rest of the architecture of Troy and the riverfront that is potentially obscured by the height of the building, which is out of character with the currently existing buildings on the site and in the neighborhood.
Agree.
Okay, so we're agreeing that that's a yes, and we'll do the sub questions?
Yes, let's do the sub questions.
Okay. The proposed action may be visible from any officially designated federal, state, or local scenic or aesthetic resource.
That would have to be a yes.
What is what do we have a list of officially designated scenic or aesthetic resources? It's not that part of it is not subjective.
Agreed. So
according to the long form, let me see.
I've got, it says officially designated scenic areas include scenic byways, scenic roads, scenic areas of statewide significant, scenic trails, and scenic rivers. Other designated areas may also include places or places listed on the National or State Registers of Historic Places, state parks, state forest preserve areas, state game refuges, national landmark, and National Park Service lands. Note that other areas may also be designated at the local level.
So in terms of the local level, this is not within the historic district. It's outside of it. And it does not, according to the long form, it does not fall in any of the other listed areas.
I can't agree with that.
Sorry, this is Anthony. Which question on the log form are we looking at?
9A.
I believe you're looking for E3, yeah, E3H, Anthony, in that area.
I see.
E3H is on page 13 of the part 1, Anthony.
Yeah, I found it.
So again, under impact on aesthetic resources, according to the long form, the only item on here that could potentially be moderate to large would be, well, I guess not on aesthetic. I'm sorry, are we on no, it would be under archaeological on item 10, the one below this.
Right. No, we're on aesthetic right now.
I'm confused.
Okay, what's up?
We're talking about historic districts and that sort of thing being an impact, correct? And then I just heard archaeology, so I just want to make sure.
Well, there's
no, right now, and again, I don't write this stuff, I just try and decipher it. We're on the impact of aesthetic resources. The next section is impact on historic and archaeological. So that's the complete next section. Right now, we're on aesthetic resources.
Okay.
And the examples in the EAF are things listed on the national state register of historic places, Scenic byways, national historic sites.
Okay. I would postulate that it's only a block away from the historic buildings on River Street. And you have the Hudson River, which is a historic and scenic thing. And even though it's not in the historic district of downtown, it's across the street from it practically. And that it is also in the middle of a proposed historic district that is not designated, not because it's not worthy, but because it just wasn't done. So I think it does have a big negative impact on those things.
So the question is, the proposed action may be visible from any officially designated federal, state, or local scenic or aesthetic resource. And we got to say whether or not it's small or moderate to large.
How about we come back to this one?
Okay.
I understand your point, Suzanne. I'm just,
Okay. No, I don't want to sit here and stare at each other all night either.
The proposed action may result in the obstruction, elimination, or significant screening of one or more officially designated scenic views. I don't know that officially designated scenic views are involved in this particular application. It's a very specific question. It's whether or not it's going to obstruct an officially designated scenic view.
No.
I think that's a no.
Yeah.
So no impact.
No impact.
Yeah. The proposed action may be visible from publicly accessible vantage points seasonally or year round.
And again, to have a moderate to large impact, Andy, correct me if I'm wrong, that would have to be out of character for the area, correct?
Yeah, and I think that question hinges more on, are there any publicly accessible vantage points that it will be visible from? And I'm trying to find real quick if they define publicly accessible vantage points. I don't know that they do.
I don't see it. I'm looking at the workbook.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking as well.
Well, what I was thinking was you might be able to see this project from somewhere in Prospect Park, right? Stands to reason.
Yeah, you can
Somewhere in the
certainly see it
state,
from
you
a
might be able to
distance
see
in
this from,
Prospect
but is
Park.
it in contrast to everything around it?
I found it. It says publicly accessible vantage points may be scenic viewing spots, identified road pull-offs and overlooks, parks and greens, road sections with a scenic byway or other locally designated spots.
What page you on?
I don't have page number on here. It's
No.
I don't know. There's no page number.
Oh, okay, that's all right. I'll find it.
These are locations where one can view a scenic or aesthetic resource. Some vantage points may have year-round views of this scenic resource. Others may be important during the winter season when leaves are off the tree.
So from Riverfront Park, which I would suggest is a publicly available vantage point, this project could be visible, the facade along Federal.
Okay, then, assuming that's the case, do you want to quantify the potential impact?
I would say it's small, given that I'm more likely looking at the river.
That's a good point.
I would imagine it would also be impacted if you were standing on the overlook up by RPI as well.
Do you want to quantify the impact?
Well, I don't know if King's Landing 1 already did the job, but King's Landing 2 would definitely create a wall, so I don't know. I suppose it's not huge, but it is an impact.
Yeah, I'm reading the definition, moderate to large. The site will be very visible all year round and will not be screened by vegetation. The project is viewed by many publicly accessible vantage points. The project results in a land use that is in sharp contrast to the surrounding land uses seen from or in the scenic resource. The project is of a scale, color, or dimension that will be highly visible from publicly accessible scenic resources. So that's how they describe moderate to large.
Okay, well, that would be a yes, in my opinion.
That would be a no from me.
You want to circle back?
Yeah, we
to
can
this
come
one?
back.
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
can
I
come
think
back
it's
to this.
somewhat related to that, to A, yeah. I think that this is the same, whereas we're identifying that it is an impact, but we're having a hard time quantifying between small or moderate.
Correct. Okay, got it. So D, the situation or activity in which viewers are engaged while viewing the proposed action is routine travel by residents, including travel to and from work, or recreational or tourism-based activities. And it could be both. It's not an either or.
Right. So again, it seems like the answer to both is clearly yes, and then we just have to sort of quantify the impact that we see.
So come back to it.
I think so.
Then I think I know your answer for this one. The proposed action may cause a diminishment of the public enjoyment and appreciation of the designated aesthetic resource.
Yes.
Okay. We'll come back to quantify the level.
Okay.
And then there are similar projects visible within the following distance of the proposed project. And then they give you 0 to half a mile to 3 mile, 3 to 5 mile, 5+ miles.
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to come back and revisit all the final answers on those 5 sub questions on that one, on aesthetic resources, right? We okay?
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Number 10, the impact on historic and archaeological resources. The proposed action may occur in or adjacent to a historic or archaeological resource. Again, yes or no? It's a general question.
Yes.
Okay. A, the proposed action may occur wholly or partially within or substantially contiguous to any buildings, archaeological site or district which is listed on a national or state register of historic places, or that has been determined by the Commissioner of New York State Parks, Rec, and Historic Preservation to be eligible for listing on the state register or historic places.
Definitely yes.
And then this is a small or moderate to large question.
A lot, yeah. Large.
I would also say moderate to large.
I would agree.
Okay. The proposed action may occur wholly or partially within or substantially contiguous to an area designated as sensitive for archaeological sites on a New York State Historic Preservation Office, which is SHPO, Archaeological Site Inventory.
No.
I think the answer is yes.
Yeah.
But I think it shows up on the EAF mapper as yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
believe
think it's outside the contiguous, I believe, right?
yeah, it's not on site. I believe it's answered yes because it is contiguous to.
Right.
Ah, okay.
And And that's probably why they submitted to phase 1A archaeological.
So that's no or small impact.
Okay.
I agree.
And then the next one is somewhat similar. The proposed action may occur wholly or partially within or substantially contiguous to an archaeological site not included in the SHPO inventory. I'm not aware of any.
I am not aware of any. How'd they answer that question? I'm just grabbing my other sheet of paper. I don't think so.
Well, the question's a little different on part one. It's, has any archaeological or historic site or resources been identified on the project site? And the answer on part one was no.
Okay,
Yeah, I think the answer to our question is no as well.
I think so. I agree.
Okay, so we now have a subset of questions for this one. If any of the above are answered moderate to large, and you answered one of them, potential moderate to large impact, continue with the following questions to support conclusions for part three, which we have to do next. Okay, so again, this is a no to small or moderate to large. The proposed action may result in the destruction or alteration of all or part of the site or property.
Yeah, definitely, yes. Large.
Well, it seems to me there's two considerations here, right? There are the buildings actually on the site, which will be destroyed for the purposes of the construction. There's also Bethel Baptist. And I don't think the answer is going to be, well, we can talk as well about smaller, moderate impact, but of these three questions, the one that most applies to Bethel Baptist seems to me to be question 3, that it introduces visual elements that are out of character with the site as it currently exists. I don't know how we exactly define alteration of the property's setting or integrity for question 2.
Well, the first one is, it's specific to the site or property. And you've said moderate to large.
Agreed.
And then the proposed action may result in the alteration of the property's setting or integrity. It's, I don't know how to define setting or integrity. The setting is going to be the same. The property's not moving. I guess it comes down to how we want to define the integrity of the property.
Well, I guess if you're destroying the buildings that are on it, you're certainly messing with their integrity. They'll be gone.
I think that's fair, Suzanne.
So,
I would agree. Just, yeah,
and so we're moderate to large on that?
yeah, I think we're all in agreement.
Okay. And then the proposed action may result in the introduction of visual elements which are out of character with the site or property or may alter its setting.
Yes.
Yes.
What size?
Moderate to
I would say-
large.
I would agree, moderate.
Then we're on to general question number 11. Impact on open space and recreation. The proposed action may result in a loss of recreational opportunities or a reduction of an open space resource as designated in any adopted municipal open space plan.
No.
No.
I don't think, no.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'd have to go no too.
Large question number 12, impact on critical environmental areas. The proposed action may be located within or adjacent to a critical environmental area. I don't believe that it is. That's a very specific term, and those are defined lands by New York State. I don't believe it's near a critical environmental area.
So no.
Okay, no.
13, impact on transportation. The proposed action may result in a change to existing transportation systems.
Is that specifically towards vehicles or, that kind of thing, or does that include parking?
Well, if you look at the sub-questions, one of the sub-questions talks about the construction of paved parking for 500 or more vehicles. So it does have a threshold for parking in the analysis.
As well as on traffic to the existing road network, if there's any proposed change to that.
Well, the sub-question A is whether or not the project will increase traffic to exceed the capacity of the existing roadway network.
I believe it will.
So then we got to jump back up to the general question, and then it would be a yes. You think there may be a change to existing transportation systems?
Yes, by that definition, if you mean traffic jams or something to that effect, specifically on Fifth.
I disagree.
Want to skip and come back?
Yep.
Okay. 14, impact on energy. The proposed action may cause an increase in the use of any form of energy.
No, I say, but chime in.
Well, would that include the heat sink effect of
I think that's a trick question. The building's gonna consume electricity, right?
It is.
Yeah.
So I think it's much like the impacts on land at the beginning. It's obviously a yes to question 14.
Oh, okay.
Aaron's right.
Yeah. So A, the proposed action will require a new or upgrade to an existing substation. I don't believe that's been presented as necessary.
I don't believe that would be necessary, given other similarly sized apartment complexes in the area.
Okay, the proposed action will require the creation or extension of an energy transmission or supply system to serve more than 50 single or two-family residences or to serve a commercial or industrial use. And again, it's going to require a creation or extension of a transmission system.
Small impact.
Okay. The proposed action may utilize more than 2,500, I guess that's kilowatt hours per year of electricity.
I think it's megawatt. Is it M?
It's M, it's megawatt.
No.
Okay.
Well, they again, the applicant answers that question on the long form. I believe they answered no.
No, yeah. The proposed action may involve heating and or cooling of more than 100,000 square feet of building area when completed. I don't think, Aaron, do you have the square footage of the proposed building handy?
I knew you were going to ask me that. I have to bear with me a moment.
Yeah, I have it somewhere too. Building footprint is 15,403 square feet.
So no, because times 5, but less. So no.
Yeah. So, and I'm taking that from Mr. Coster's project narrative. Okay. 15, impact on noise, odor, and light. The proposed action may result in an increase in noise, odors, or outdoor lighting. On a yes or no?
I would think probably yes. You have the lights all around the building that shining onto the street from the apartments, but that,
And then the question becomes, is it an increase? Because it's asking if it's a result in a net increase than what's there now.
well, from what's there now, yes, definitely.
We'll put it as a yes.
That makes sense.
Okay. The proposed action may produce sound above noise levels established by local regulation.
Small impact.
The proposed action may result in blasting within 1,500 feet of any residence, hospital, school, licensed daycare center, and nursing home. I don't believe the record contains any statements about blasting being required.
No.
The proposed action may result in routine odors for more than 1 hour per day. It's what we refer to as the bakery question.
No,
The proposed action may result in light shining onto other properties, onto adjoining properties.
I would think so.
There's a
But it's
question
not
of
a ball
size.
field. Yes, but I would say small impact.
The proposed action may result in lighting creating sky glow brighter than existing area conditions.
Keeping in mind, all proposed light fixtures are night sky compliant.
And downward facing, right?
Correct.
So no or small.
Okay. 16, impact on human health. The proposed action may have an impact on human health from exposure to new or existing sources of contaminants. Anybody identify any potential for sources of contaminants?
I think we're reading ahead.
Oh, okay, I get it.
I would say no.
We good with a no?
Yeah, I'm good with a no.
No.
17, consistency with community plans. The proposed action is, and again, be careful, I'm going to read this again because it's actually in the negative. The proposed action is not consistent with adopted land use plans. So answering no means it is consistent. Answering yes means it's not consistent.
I have to go with a yes on that one.
That is not consistent with adopted land use plans.
Correct.
So where is the basis of the inconsistency?
I personally don't think it jives with the comprehensive plan.
You want to come back to it?
Or should we go down the list? Or would you like to come back?
Well, it's up to you. If you, we need a consensus on yes or no.
Can I speak to this?
Of
This
course.
is, I mean, it's the adopted land use plans is the zoning that we have right now. I don't see how it's inconsistent with the zoning or the comprehensive plan. I mean, you have other things to come back at, but I don't see how this is inconsistent with the zoning and the land use plan.
Well, the question is whether the language of the question means only the zoning, where I believe that, they're not seeking any variances. It is consistent with current zoning. But Suzanne's point was that it's not consistent with the comprehensive plan, which is a land use plan. I just don't know that that's what the question is asking.
All right, why don't we come back?
Okay. And then 18, and this is the last large question, last yes or no. Consistency with community character. The proposed project is inconsistent with the existing community character.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. A, the proposed action may replace or eliminate existing facilities, structures, or areas of historic importance to the community.
In my opinion, yes.
This is a magnitude question.
I believe it's a large, moderate to large, because if you destroy those buildings, that's a large impact. They're gone.
Are they areas of historic importance to the community? I mean, I'm being really square here, but are they of historic importance to the community? They're a mess. And I'm playing devil's advocate for a reason. They're very important to, if they're very important to the community, they shouldn't be in the condition that they are right now.
Well, one could say that about half of Troy, unfortunately.
And we do.
I think personally, more care could have been taken to devise a project that would have worked them into some kind of a larger project. I wouldn't have had a problem with that. I think no one thought outside of the box on this one. It was either, build this giant building and tear the houses down, or in the case of not doing that, having these derelict buildings, which of course is not a good solution to the area either. But that seems to be where we are, either or. I do think the one building that architectural historians have identified that survived the 1863 fire, that one definitely has historic value.
You want to come back to it?
Yes, please.
The proposed action may create a demand for additional community services. The examples are schools, police, and fire.
Are you guys looking for staff? I don't want to overstep here. We've been pretty quiet, and I just want to see if that's what you guys want from us.
Well, we're almost, I think we're on question 18. We're almost through it. So
Okay.
let's just keep going, and then we'll circle back. We can take a look at
Sure.
it. So
Well,
I think B is small, no, it is small.
I agree.
The proposed action may displace affordable or low-income housing in an area where there is a shortage of such housing.
well, again, that goes back to what one does with the site, if one includes the houses in that site. As of now, of course, they're not housing anyone, and they are a wreck, but that is not necessarily a permanent condition.
Yeah, I think it's a small impact, though.
Yeah, based on the current conditions, I would have to agree.
Yeah, okay.
All right, the proposed action may interfere with the use or enjoyment of officially recognized or designated public resources.
No,
The proposed action is inconsistent with the predominant architectural scale and character.
that's a big yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Okay, and then the magnitude?
Moderate to
moderate to
large.
large.
The proposed action is inconsistent with the character of the existing natural landscape. I don't know if that applies here. I don't think there's too much natural landscape left in that area.
I agree.
Yeah, I would answer that one no.
Yeah,
Okay. So that is all of part 2. Do you want to go back and discuss the remaining ones in the order that we passed on them, or you want to discuss certain topics, or how do you want to proceed from here?
Dee Dee, should we check all the boxes?
Sure, let's start at number 1. and
Okay.
circle back. Anybody want?
1E is the open one. Proposed action may involve construction that continues for more than 1 year or in multiple phases. And it's a question of whether or not there would be a no or small impact or moderate to large impact.
I think it's a small impact.
I think so as well. I'm looking. Their agreement?
that one's not a hill I'm gonna die on. I'll go with that.
No
Yeah,
one's dying tonight, Suzanne. Not over this.
It seems to me like it has the potential to be larger, but if the rest of the commissioners are confident it's going to be small, I'll agree with that.
Okay. Okay, and I think, and anybody, if I miss one or you think there's another one that I passed over, let me know. But I'm going by my notes. I think I was pretty good at keeping them. I think we're now on to 9, general question 9, on page 6, impact on aesthetic resources. By my notes, we answered 9B as a note of small impact, but then we left open A, C, D, E, and F. So I guess we'll start with A. Proposed action may be visible from any officially designated federal, state, or local scenic or aesthetic resource.
So
I think it's a small impact.
Others? I think they're kind of all combined, you know, it's hard to look at these. I mean, can we just talk about what the concern is or what?
Yeah,
can
that's a good idea.
we discuss it instead of being boxed into these questions? I think the concern is I guess, I don't want to speak for you, Suzanne, but you're saying, you know, looking from the river or looking from the RPI vantage point, is that?
I mean, obviously you're gonna see it. It's a big building on the street, so whether or not it's a small impact or a moderate to large impact is where the sticking point is, obviously.
It may help to think about answering the question from the perspective of the public and not from your own. And thinking about, do you think most people in Troy or passing through the area would feel it's a moderate to large impact?
Okay, if you put it that way, probably moderate.
So the choices are no or small is one choice, or moderate to large is a second choice.
Again, this isn't one I want to. Yeah, okay, small.
Anthony, Sarah, do you agree?
I do.
Yes, we can say a small impact.
Okay.
C, the proposed action may be visible from publicly accessible vantage points, either seasonally or year-round.
Again, that's a yes, but whether or not it's small or moderate to large is the question. I'm going to go with small.
Any other commissioners?
I mean, this one is where I think it may be moderate. I mean, reading from the guidance from the DEC website on how to fill this out, some examples of moderate to large impact that might fall into this category are: the site will be very visible all year round and will not be screened by vegetation. The project is viewed by many publicly accessible vantage points. The project results in a land use that is in sharp contrast to surrounding land uses seen from or in the scenic resource. And the project is of scale, color, or dimension that will be highly visible from publicly accessible scenic resources. So, you know, again, like we've been saying, this one is sort of in the eye of the beholder. But there are a number of factors here. I mean, I think that because of the location downtown, you are able to see this from the riverfront park, you know, crossing the Green Island Bridge into Troy, from the RPI overlook, from Prospect Park. And, you know, again, really, it's kind of a more subjective matter of how highly you weight this. You know, I tend to think it could be more than just small, but, you know, like Suzanne, I'm not going to die on this hill if everyone is in agreement that they don't think it's that significant of an impact.
Anthony, can you read the part? I don't have that in front of me. Can you read the part about in sharp contrast?
The project results in a land use that is in sharp contrast to surrounding land uses seen from or in the scenic resource.
Okay.
And the last one, the product is of scale, color, or dimension that will be highly visible from publicly accessible scenic resources.
Well, definitely see those yellow bars on it.
Okay, so I think moderate, is that what consensus is?
I won't argue.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. The situation or activity in which viewers are engaged while viewing the proposed action is routine travel by residents, including travel to and from work, recreational or tourism-based activities, or both.
I would think both.
Both.
And then it's a magnitude question. And it can be moderate for one and small for the other. They break them up.
I feel like these are all very interrelated.
If C is moderate, I don't see how D2 could be anything but moderate.
That's what I feel. I feel like they're just interrelated.
Yeah, I think that's right.
I
I
agree.
think I think we could answer D1 as a minor impact and the other one is as a larger or more moderate impact, as we've said.
E, the proposed action may cause a diminishment of the public enjoyment and appreciation of the designated aesthetic resource.
That's such a subjective question.
Agreed.
So for anyone other than the people participating in this hearing, which is 50 people, will there be more than a small impact on their enjoyment of the aesthetic resource that they're enjoying at that time? I think the answer is no.
I agree. I would say a small impact.
Yeah, sadly, I agree too.
F, there are similar projects visible within the following distance of the proposed project. And then it's 0 to half mile, half to 3 mile, 3 to 5 mile, or 5+ mile.
Well, there's one right next door.
And then it's a question of whether or not, you know, the size of the impact. It's a weird question because there are similar projects, but then they want to know if that's a small impact or a moderate to large impact.
I find it a confusing question.
Agreed.
I don't think our response has great bearing on the outcome.
No, I'm reading again from the DEC website for guidance on this question. It says, if the proposed project is similar to multiple developments or projects in the area in terms of scale, context, dimensions, density, design, and location, then it is not likely to have any impacts to scenic or aesthetic resources. The reviewing agency will need to decide, however, what the threshold is for how many other similar projects may be visible. That depends solely on the context of the community. The reviewing agency will need to determine a threshold for what would constitute no impact for this question. When a scenic or aesthetic resource is being evaluated, it is likely that some impact may occur, even though there are many similar projects in the area. For what that helps.
Well, to me, that sounds like, would building this be a tipping point or not?
I think that's right. I think they're saying we need to make that determination.
And if you think it is a tipping point, then it would be a moderate to large impact. Correct?
That's fair.
Then I would have to say yes, moderate to large.
All right. So we are now on to a general yes or no question. 13, the impact on transportation. Whether or not the proposed action will result in a change to existing transportation systems.
Did we answer any of those or, oh, we
No,
have to answer the big one.
Yeah, we gotta answer the
Okay.
big one first.
I
Okay.
think we can say yes.
Yeah, I think the answer is yes, and then we should go and answer the small questions.
Okay. The first one, projected traffic increase may exceed capacity of existing road network.
Right. And so the question is capacity. The question is, what does capacity mean? The capacity to accommodate moving vehicles, in which case I would say that is a small impact. Is it the capacity for the traffic to park? That might be a different answer.
Yeah, I think the parking is where parking comes in. That's the, because it may create or worsen a parking deficit. I
The
think
question is referencing transportation, right? Not parking.
Correct, but then they ask about parking in sub-question B, so they bring it into it.
yeah, parking is transportation. And it could be under F, other impacts.
There's an argument to be made that the more parking you provide, the more vehicles are going to be used on site, and the more traffic would be as well, just to make it more complicated.
Yeah.
I mean, the
If you
street has
build it, they will
capacity
come
to handle
argument, James.
another. What was that, Aaron?
The if you build it, they will come argument.
Yeah, I was going to say, but from a more quantifiable standpoint, the street does have capacity for this land use.
I think that's the only correct answer. That is my opinion. And that if anything, it's a small impact.
And my experience with the use of the term capacity when evaluating roadway networks is it's actually a number. What type of road is it, and what's the number of vehicles it can put through the road, each way in an hour? So I don't know if that's what you're going for here, but in my experience, capacity in road networks is always a number, a quantifiable number.
Yeah, I read this question as assuming it was a volume as well.
Right.
Well, it's usually a letter. They give you a letter of service. They rate you on a scale from A through F, basically. And we can, I mean, I'm not an expert in this field, but I'm sure that we can assume that it would be higher than a level F, even with the most negative scenario of this land use.
I think as someone was describing, it's quantifiable. A traffic impact study was not conducted for this project. The applicant provided data that would suggest such a study is not required. That's traffic, not parking. Moving.
Yeah, so this is Anthony. I think we can answer no to question A as well. I'm in agreement with Sarah on that one. I forget if any of the other commissioners would.
Yeah, I thought, yep, I'm in agreement as well.
Yeah, if it does not include the question of parking, if it's just the capacity of the road, I agree.
B, the proposed action may result in the construction of paved parking for 500 or more vehicles. I think we know that's a no, it's not proposed.
Correct.
Yep.
C,
Nope.
the proposed action will degrade existing transit access.
No.
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 The proposed action will degrade existing pedestrian or bicycle accommodations.
I think that's a no.
Correct, no.
The proposed action may alter the present pattern of movement of people or goods.
I think that one's a yes.
Right, the question is then, how do we rate the impact? Do we consider it small, moderate?
Will certainly impact the church. And the activities therein.
The question is the pattern of movement of people.
I can see a bottleneck, especially on Sunday. And depending on a lot of other things, you know, if you were having deliveries to either the large building or the people across the street or the church, that could have a significant impact. Maybe not 24/7, but certainly at certain points or certain days.
All right.
I
So
think
the-
it's a small impact. In the context of a city, I think that it's a small impact. Incidental.
So I think we all agree there's an impact. It's whether it's small or moderate. I tend to think it's probably small as well.
Yeah, I agree that the impact on this one would be small.
Okay, I'm outvoted.
Okay, 17.
But I guess I'd like to go back to the parking because other impacts. What about, because I know we addressed parking, but that parking deficit issue that it may.
I think that's a good idea.
That may create or worsen a parking deficit.
Andy, is there any potential issue determining that parking is a moderate to large impact if parking isn't required by zoning?
Yeah, from my perspective in defending the board of the decision, yes, it's problematic to say that we had a concern about parking when it's not required by code. So the simple answer is yes, it makes my job a little bit more difficult. There's also the question of whether or not, because the project is proposing its own parking as well as to improve the parking lot, whether or not they're providing a beneficial impact to the parking situation versus a potential adverse impact, which is another consideration.
But as a counterpoint to that, I understand what you're saying, and I don't think anybody here on the commission is suggesting that there is a parking requirement which doesn't exist, as we've discussed in numerous previous hearings. However, it's simply a fact that to assess one project versus another, you know, a project that creates 100 units of housing versus one that creates 10 units of housing are going to have different impacts on parking. You know, whether or not either of them creates an additional parking space, there's just going to be a different impact. So to properly weigh the impact of this project, I think it's something that we have to discuss.
And to get to that point, Anthony, I'm not the lead agency. So if you as a member of the lead agency think it's a consideration that needs to be discussed amongst the board and a magnitude assigned, that's what lead agencies do.
I would also say that since King's Landing 1 caused a great amount of cars in the area, their inclusion of parking in this project doesn't, it sort of cancels out whatever good they came up with, because there's not enough parking because of King's Landing 1. So making some parking for King's Landing 2 doesn't really, to me, doesn't solve anything, because they created the problem in the first place.
I think you're talking more about cumulative impacts.
Yeah, I mean, the fact is, you know, if you've got 50 parallel parking spaces on the block and you just built a building with, you know, a few more hundred people with cars on it, then even though you're putting in 100 spaces, you're still, you know, you're still in the red. And they are going to eliminate some spaces by building this building anyway. So, you know, I still think we have a problem here. And I get that the zoning, they don't have to have a single space. I get that. I think that's crazy, and, you know, that needs to get changed, but I get that they are within their rights to do what they're doing or propose to do what they're doing, but that doesn't mean that it works for the community or the city.
Okay, thank you. I think I agree with both of you, but Anthony, in terms of, I think we need to at least address this in terms of the impact and assign whether it is no or small or moderate to large. I think we need to discuss that. So is this the right place to do this under this F, impact on transportation?
Oh, sure. You've identified a possible impact as may create or worsen a parking deficit. So then it's a question of the magnitude, the no or small. Well, it's not no because you've identified it. So is it small or moderate to large?
I think it's moderate to large.
I agree.
I'll agree too.
Okay.
I'm with you.
I think that was the last open item, right?
Consistency with community plans,
All right, I forgot about that one.
17. We haven't answered the yes or no on whether or not it's consistent with adopted land use plans.
So again, I've gone to the DEC website for guidance on answering this question. And they do mention when reviewing adopted plans, pay special attention to the visions and goals and the maps that may be included in the plan. When a comprehensive plan exists, an action would be considered consistent if it is not in conflict with the stated vision, goals, recommendations, or land use concept map. So I think that in addition to compliance with zoning code, compliance with the comprehensive plan is something that we should have to consider here. And so the question is whether we think it is compliant, and if not, whether or not that's a small or a moderate impact.
Well, I think we're called on to, if I can quote the zoning ordinance, to enhance and conserve the unique characteristics of the city's neighborhoods and thereby in their orderly development. And I don't think that this project does that.
So I'm hearing 2 votes to answer this question as yes, that the action is not consistent with adopted land use plans.
That would be a yes from me.
Yes, I think we should go through the list.
Okay. Then answer the general question is yes. A is the proposed actions, land use components may be different from or in sharp contrast to current surrounding land use patterns.
Well, that would be yes, because the current land use patterns are row houses. It's a row house block. With the church on
But it's
the
a multiple family district. I mean, I see as you go through these, I'm sorry, I'm driving around different pages here. It's maybe different or in sharp contrast to current surrounding land use patterns. I mean, the land use patterns, there's office across the street, there's multiple family. In this building, it's just of different style, but the land use is multiple family.
Yeah, this is regarding land use, not architecture, correct?
Correct.
Right. So I mean, I would say
But
that's
is
a
there
no.
a difference, is there a difference made between a 2 or 3 family, multiple family and a 150 unit multiple family? Because that's apples and oranges, it would seem to me.
So again, quoting from the DEC website on this particular sub-question, we've got the land use components in this question refer to the proposed use, dimensions of the lot, dimensions and location of all structures, setbacks, size of the structures, accessory uses, and overall scale and intensity of the proposed project. For example, a proposed 150,000 square foot warehouse with 20 loading docks would likely have land use components that include the structure itself, parking areas, signs, driveways. This is just an example. But under the analysis, they give us the following bullet points. What is the scale and size of the project site in comparison to current land uses? Is the structure larger, taller, on a different lot size, of a very different land use, of an architectural design that is in sharp contrast, sited on the parcel in a very different manner? Is the intensity of the proposed similar or different from surrounding uses? Will there be more people at the site than surrounding uses, more traffic, more structures on the lot, and less green space than others? So those are the types of things that they want us to consider. And in terms of very simple things like the size, height, design, I realize that the land use is consistent in the sense of being multifamily, but it does seem different in a number of different ways that, you know, it's at least an impact. The question is whether it's moderate. I tend to think that it is.
Now, in looking at those questions, as you just read them, I would agree.
In the comprehensive plan, I'll just say that's in an area of mixed use and mid-rise residential. That's in the adopted plan.
All right, so we're still on question A. Do other members?
I believe it's moderate to large.
And I would say that it's small.
Okay, so one is small and 3 are moderate to large.
B, the proposed action will cause the permanent population of the city in which the project is located to grow by more than 5%.
No.
No.
No,
The proposed action is inconsistent with local land use plans or zoning regulations.
unfortunately not.
No.
No.
The proposed action is inconsistent with any county plans or other regional land use plans.
I think no.
I agree.
Agreed.
And I should have said this earlier. If you're the first person voting and I've already gone to the next question, it's only in the interest of time. Once I get 3, I'm moving along. So I'm not purposely cutting you off. I'm just, once we get to the 3 votes needed for it to pass, I'm going to the next
Understood, Andy. It's late. We all want to move through.
one. Yeah. The proposed action may cause a change in the density of development that is not supported by existing infrastructure or is distant from existing infrastructure.
I think no.
No.
The proposed action is located in an area characterized by low density development that will require new or expanded public infrastructure.
I think no.
No,
No.
The proposed action may induce secondary development impacts, e.g. residential or commercial development not included in the proposed action.
does that refer to the planned storefronts?
Yeah, well, it says commercial development not included in the proposed
Ah.
action.
Okay,
Yeah, I think that has in mind that it would induce new construction, right, not part of this site, but additional residential or commercial development.
yeah, I got
Right.
you.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think that's a no.
All right, then we have one more question to work through. It's 18A. 18 is the consistency with community character section. We already picked yes, as the project is inconsistent with existing community character. And the question we need to address is, the proposed action may replace or eliminate existing facilities, structures, or areas of historic importance to the community.
So this one, if I recall, we all agreed that there's an impact and it's just really a question of weighting the impact.
Yeah, I was just reading through that DEC as well. So yeah, I from reading this, I think there is an impact. So the question is, I'm looking at the small to give examples. All right, so what do we think? Small or moderate to large?
well, you know what I think. I'm a moderate to large.
And I'm a small. I think that the historical importance to the community is referring specifically to those 4 buildings. And I question whether they are historically important to the community. Again, this is consistency with community character. It's not archaeology or architecture.
All right, so I guess I would say small impact.
I think I would side with Suzanne that it's moderate.
Okay, so 2-2.
Which means we can't answer.
Right, so shall we discuss it more, or I know it's getting late. What do you suggest, Andy?
I think we could leave it blank because we still have to discuss how we're going to proceed with all of the other moderate to large impacts that have been identified.
Okay.
And the way the process works, and as a quick overview, is if the lead agency identifies potentially large, moderate to large impacts, they then have to make a determination if the project as proposed has offered sufficient mitigation to address those impacts. And then once you get through that analysis, you have to make an overall determination of whether or not any identified moderate to large impact could result in a significant adverse impact as a result of the project. And if you do identify that any of the moderate to large impacts you've identified already could result in a significant adverse impact going forward for that particular environmental attribute, then it would be appropriate for you to issue a positive declaration under seeker, which would require the applicant to create and submit an environmental impact statement, which will include mitigation measures proposed for those particular impacts you've identified as the potential for significant adverse environmental impacts. What would happen is, subsequent to a positive declaration, there would likely be a scoping meeting where it would be worked through with the applicant what particular areas of environmental concern need to be addressed and focused upon in the environmental impact statement to shorten up the level of review, so they're not analyzing and proposing mitigation for things you didn't identify as a potential for an adverse environmental impact. So I guess my first question to the board is, in looking at the record of this project as proposed, do you feel, in your opinion, that the mitigation measures that have already been offered by the applicant in response to concerns raised previously, for one example, I would state, somebody asked them to change the architectural features, and he came back the following month with revised architectural features. They're proposing the off-site parking. Of all the things in their entirety that has been proposed, is that sufficient mitigation measures to overcome a concern that anything you identified as a moderate to large impact could become a significant adverse environmental impact?
Okay, thank you. So, I mean, this is where we need to discuss amongst ourselves, answering Andy's question as to whether we think that any of these impacts been mitigated and addressed by the applicant.
This is Sarah, and I will volunteer only because no one else has yet. I have highlighted the areas that we have identified as moderate to large.
Thank you.
Concerns, and as we all know, consistency with neighborhood character, the impact on historic and archaeological resources, and parking are really the three primary concerns. And I will state that it's my opinion that the concern about parking, whether required by zoning or not, has been adequately addressed, provided that the conceptual agreement between the city and the applicant comes to fruition. With regard to neighborhood character, I do believe that the design of the building is inconsistent with the neighborhood character. I do not think that it has been mitigated to the maximum potential. Yet I am not willing to challenge that. This is one commissioner, not willing to challenge that in terms of severe adverse effects. And thirdly, I do not believe that the applicant has appropriately or adequately mitigated the historical impact that this project will have. But I don't know that it's possible to do so. What the applicant has done is deemed those historic resources as minimal. And I wouldn't challenge that. I think it's regrettable, but I wouldn't challenge it given the condition those buildings are in right now. So I've shared my opinions.
Thank you, Sarah. Any other members have thoughts to share or discuss?
Well, I think that in terms of two of the concerns, the latter two, not the parking, but the latter two, I think that an opportunity has been lost in coming up with something in the first place that would have worked in that site. I think they went with what would give them, the biggest bang for the buck. And I don't think that the nods that they made to change it to, knocking off a story, the setback, the whole thing, I just think they could have done better. I understand that a developer has to make a profit and that is probably tied with what their building looks like, or maybe even higher than what their building looks like. But I think that this particular corner of Troy is part of the gateway, and the city has already, in the distant past, ruined a lot of it. And this is our opportunity to at least create something that goes towards making what we've got a little bit better. And I just don't feel that this project does that. And I can't support it. I understand all the concerns. I am a student of development. I understand how it works. And, but in spite of that, I am also a preservationist and a person who loves Troy. And I want to see something better there. I think as far as the parking goes, they have done a yeoman's job of trying to mitigate the parking. But again, this is where people live. And I think, you know, zoning and laws and this and that and the other are all wonderful, but when it comes down to, this is where people live and where people come out of their doors and can't find parking in the houses that they've lived in for 40 years. And, you know, that is just a reality that I think people have to address in some way. And I don't think this project does that as either, even though they have done a lot of work towards trying to do it. I just don't think it's enough.
So just to keep everybody focused on what's on the table in front of you this evening, it's not a question of the merits of the project. It's a question of whether or not you identify the potential for significant adverse environmental impacts that could result from the project, thereby triggering the need for the applicant to submit an environmental impact statement. It's not a question of the merits of the project at this point. But if you believe that all of the mitigation presented so far doesn't address a concern that there still is a potential for a significant adverse environmental impact resulting from the project, then where you're heading towards is requiring, you know, issuing a positive declaration requiring an environmental impact statement, which would set forth additional mitigation measures to address the identified potential adverse impacts.
Okay, given that, that is my opinion. I think this has needs further mitigation studies.
Okay, thank you. Anthony, do you have any feedback? Or
Yeah, I
thought?
very much appreciate both Sarah and Suzanne's comments, and I tend to agree with Sarah about the parking. Clearly, as we discussed, as going through the part two, there is going to be an impact on parking. I agree with Suzanne that I think that the applicant has done a respectable job in trying to mitigate that impact. And as Sarah pointed out, if the agreement with the city panned out, it seems that it would. And overall, you know, I do think that, as we've pointed out, there are no parking minimums, and we don't want necessarily to require every developer to just turn more of our downtown into parking lots in order to accommodate the need for parking. So I'm very sensitive to that becoming too much of a driving force in our review of proposals before us. So I understand that it's a concern on the public's mind. That's something that's made very clear, but to me, it's not the overriding concern here. What I do think is clear is that there is going to be a substantial impact on the community character and on the buildings that will have to be demolished and changing the character of the neighborhood as it exists currently. I understand that some steps have been made to try to bring the development more in line with what the comments were about the initial design proposal. But at the same time, I think that there have been other comments from the public pointing out different ways that this could be altered or a different development could be considered that wouldn't be so out of character. And those have basically fallen on deaf ears, that the changes that have been made have not really gone to the heart of that. So I'm with Suzanne on that one. I don't think that enough action has been taken to mitigate that impact. And, you know, the ones that we've identified are going through the statement. And I also couldn't, in good faith, say that make a negative declaration on the economic impact here.
Okay, thank you. I also weigh in on the parking. I think that the parking with the I think the applicant has provided mitigation with the off-site parking to be included as with this project. I feel that does take care of that. So the issue is neighborhood character and historic impact. So Andy, where do we go from here?
I think if you think you guys have deliberated it and you think you have an idea when you want to go, it would be a motion at this point. And I think it's one of two choices. It would be a motion for a positive declaration based upon the discussions and deliberations herein that you've identified the potential for at least one significant adverse environmental impact that would require an environmental impact statement be created and submitted.
So do we still need to go through the part 3, or do we go right into that?
Well, in effect, that's what we're doing. We're going through the part 3 now. This is the analysis I had suggested you conduct that you've just gone through is really the deliberations necessary for the part 3. I mean, we could go through the paperwork, but
Yep, okay.
at the end of the day, a motion to issue a positive declaration addresses part 3.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to ask if there's any more discussion. And we want to discuss this more, think about it more. What does the board want to do?
I think we should vote whether or not to have a positive or negative declaration.
Okay, Andy, so with 4 members voting, explain to me how this works.
I just wanted to confirm, Suzanne, that was a motion to issue a positive declaration?
Sure.
Okay.
Yes.
So let me rephrase. So you're proposing a motion to require a submission of environmental impact statement based upon the identification of at least one significant adverse potential impact, and you're going to require the applicant to submit an environmental impact statement.
Yes.
Okay. That's the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All right, going to a vote. Suzanne Spellin,
Yes.
Anthony Moen,
Yes.
Sarah Wangert,
No.
Deirdre Rudolph, yes.
Okay, so the motion passes 3-1. There's a positive declaration for the project, and I'll work with staff to create the necessary paperwork. There are some notifications we need to make, as well as notify the applicant that a positive declaration has been issued. And then the next step would be setting up a scoping meeting to go over those issues that need to be addressed in the environmental impact statement. And it may be something that we want to discuss as a board. I know staff will be involved, but the board may want to be involved as well. But that would be the next step. There's some paperwork Aaron, Commissioner Strikeman, and I have to work on tomorrow. And then the next step would be the scoping, but we'd keep you all updated and informed of the process.
Okay, thank you. And I think if we could do the scoping as a separate meeting, because obviously these meetings are kind of long. We have 2 more.
I think Ms. Roger Keating votes for that. Yes.
Yes, thank you. Yes. All right. Is there anything further we need to do regarding this application tonight?
No, I think you're all set.
All right. So moving on, our next item of old business is PLPC 2020-0031, 101 to 119 Country Gardens Apartment, site plan review and secret determination. Country Garden Acres is proposing 21 new low-rise structures containing 144 new dwelling units. The applicant is represented by Chase & Companies. Is the applicant here with us tonight?
Yes, I am still here. Hi, Andy. Yes.
Perfect. Can you just update us on since when you were last here?
Yes, Madam Chair. Yeah. So just for the record, again, Roger Keating from the Chazen Companies. The last time we were before you, we gave a project update that basically just memorialized where we were. We had gone to the Zoning Board of Appeals. We received our parking variance for reducing the parking ratio for 1.5 parking spaces to 1 for the units on site. And if you recall, there were some comments that had come up from the public previously as it related to one of the buildings we had out in front of the project. I'll share my screen really quick just so everybody has that, because I'll try to keep this as brief as I can tonight. Can you see my screen? Okay. Looks like you can. So there was a building, an apartment building up in the front here. We since relocated that into the balance of the site. We've kept all the other connections to the urban trail network, the trailhead and such. And when we were before you last, we were really at a point where Aaron and the department needed to send the project to third-party review for their engineering comments. We received those last week. And just to summarize really briefly, the comments, and Aaron can speak to this as well, but the comments were generally just technical in nature, primarily focused more around stormwater management. And as it relates to the site plan, this is an updated version of it. Really, the only change that would have any impact as to what the look and the feel of the project site would be is that we increased the size of the cul-de-sac radius a little bit per comments, just for ease of firefighter apparatus. So there's some other ancillary comments that came up, but really the overall look and feel of the project has not changed since the last time we were before you. And Aaron, do you want to weigh in on anything as it relates to the comments received?
No, I'll just agree with your summary.
Okay.
They were not significant.
So with that, Madam Chair, I'll turn it back to you for any questions, comments that you may have.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any questions. Do any other board members have any questions tonight?
No, I do not.
All right, thank you. So do we need a motion to table this for the next meeting?
Well, at this point, I'm not sure what else we have to address with the board or department at this point. Aaron, is there anything that you feel that besides just addressing the minor technical comments? On the plans?
No, Roger. I think the commission could take an action this evening with the stipulation that outstanding engineering comments be addressed.
Okay, so I guess we'd have to go through seeker first, and I guess there's a question. Andy, is this an unlisted action or is this a type 1 action?
I think it's a type 1. When you look at the EAF, the question 12, it's identified from the resource mapper that it's contiguous to a historic district. I'm not sure where, but that's what's on EAF. If that's the case, it states that if you meet 25% of any other threshold on a type 1 list, you become a type 1 action. Short version, there's a section in type 1 that if you have 200 or more units, and this has more than 25% of 200 units proposed. So I think it would be a type 1 action, not an unlisted action. I don't think that's going to change your eventual seeker determination of significance, but I do think for the record, it is type 1.
So Andy, then at this point, if the board is not in a position to take action as it relates to that, what would you suggest we do so that we could be in a position, say, the next meeting to do so?
I think, Roger, if the board hasn't identified any potential environmental impacts, thinking it was an unlisted, the fact that it's changed to TAM 1 is now a type 1 is just, it's a change in paperwork. I don't think it inhibits their ability to act tonight at all.
Okay, I wanted to be clear on that.
I'd like to chime in. This is Steve Strikeman. I don't believe this is next to a historic district, contiguous to one.
Yeah, I don't know, Steve. I don't
Uh,
think
d-
I don't
there's
think
no
they see
historic
I
this.
don't
district in that
either,
area.
Steve. I don't believe it is either. I mean, if you
That might have been a
give me, if
mistake
you
on
give me
that,
10
so
minutes, I'll confirm.
it's not.
It's just how the
There's no historic up there.
It's sometimes that environmental mapper will check a box on you. So that may be one of
And
the
I think that's
cases.
what this is.
Okay, well,
And you may be right, that happens frequently, where something pops up that isn't necessarily there. But again, I don't know that it changes the board's ability to act this evening.
Okay.
all right. We are meeting 3 weeks from now. I would prefer to table this until that time, till this can be resolved. I also do not see any environmental issues with what I have seen on the short form, but I would like this to be procedurally correct. So if you could just, investigate what that was.
Mhm.
And if it needs to be, completed, we'll just do it meeting.
D, I think, and I would just throw in, it's a mapping issue. I mean, I think if Andy, there is no historic district up there, and I think if
That's correct.
Andy
This is not
is comfortable
adjacent.
with this, I don't see any reason to table this and prolong this out for another meeting.
Okay, so what is the answer to your short form question regarding the applicant submitted information stating it was
Adjacent to a district.
that's
yeah.
all I'm getting from is what the applicant submitted. That's all I have. So I'm asking for additional information in order to make a decision.
Well, and again, the additional information is that it was mapped incorrectly and it's not adjacent to a historic district. So it was a mistake
Yeah,
on the.
if there's no,
The
again,
historic district is available on our website.
The only area of historical significance near this site is the Burden Iron Works area, which is at the base of Campbell and Mill there. So it's at least a half mile from there.
Well, again, our attorney is saying it's potentially an unlisted action. I would like that explored before we take action on seeker.
Andy, would you agree that if it is not adjacent to a historic district, that it is in fact an unlisted action?
Yes, I would agree. The only reason I'm saying it's a type 1 is because that question was answered yes on the form.
And that's why I'm saying that.
If it's the applicant's representation through his professional engineers that it is not substantially contiguous to a historic district, along with the commissioner stating that, and I believe I heard the city engineer as well, then I think you would have the ability, based upon their professional representations, to treat that as an environmental resource mapper glitch, which do happen frequently. But at a bare minimum, if you're going to act tonight, I would expect that the applicant would confirm that error, because at any time in the future, if it does indeed, that answer was correct and it is contiguous to something that triggers that, you can always reevaluate a secret determination. You always have that ability.
So could somebody explain to me why we can't just wait for the next meeting?
You absolutely can, if that's what the board wants to do.
So is there a reason that this needs to be approved tonight? I guess I'm asking the applicant.
Our meetings aren't getting any shorter.
Yeah. They've been through the.
Brian.
Yeah, I mean, if the only reason to have them show up next month is to confirm something we've just determined doesn't need to be confirmed.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Then
guess
what? Yeah.
obviously that's, just, an additional meeting, obviously.
Well, I assume you're going to be back for Taylor Apartments, right?
That's this evening as well.
That's right after this. So I'm not sure. So maybe.
Okay. I'm just the only one.
It's also worth noting Roger's not the applicant in either of those proposals.
Okay. I would ask, other commissioners to please weigh in. I don't want to.
Can we just take, this is Sarah, can we take the 3 weeks to clean up paperwork and put this on the consent agenda?
if that's what, if it seems like that's what the board would like to do, I will make the necessary paperwork, I guess, to resubmit the short form. Andy, is that what's appropriate here for that piece of it?
Yeah, if you could confirm that that question 12 is a no, then it would be a short form. If it is indeed a yes, it's got to be a long form.
Okay.
Correct. And then I guess we would also then have our third-party engineering review complete, hopefully at that time.
Yeah, the plans have been revised already, so even if they can't get their comments back in time, I think we would be able to at least be able to provide everyone here the responses to those. But again, most of those comments, with the exception of the cul-de-sac, didn't really impact what the look and the feel of the plan is. Okay. I will provide that back to the city. Aaron, that'll come to your office. And then if we then could be placed on the consent agenda, that would be acceptable, Sarah.
All right, in that case, I move to table this to the April 21st meeting.
I second that motion.
All right, Barbara Higbee,
Yes.
Suzanne,
Yes.
Sarah Wenger,
Yeah.
Aaron Moen,
Yes.
and Deirdre Rudolph, yes. Motion carried. Thank you. All right, moving on to our very last agenda item. PLPC 2020-0073 Taylor Apartments, Site Plan Review and Seeker Determination, Type 1 Action. Taylor is proposing to demolish the vacant Taylor 1 and 2 towers and construct a 90-unit, 96,400 square foot mixed-use, mixed-income building that includes 64 replacement affordable housing units set aside for existing residents of the currently occupied Taylor 4 building. The applicant is represented by Roger Keating of Chase & Companies.
And as a reminder, everyone, I'm recused from this, so I'm just going to be stepping away for the night. Good night, everyone.
All right, good night, Anthony.
Good night,
Thank you.
Anthony.
Night.
Okay, so we're back again. Roger Keating from the Chase & Companies, here tonight with the entire design team for the Taylor Apartments project. We were before this board last. We did an update that went over the site plan and the building. We since went to the HRC board to present the project. We also have been before the zoning board, the zone for our variances. I believe they have commented back to this board because their pending action will be at the conclusion of seeker with this board. And at the last time we were before you, similar to the last project, we were waiting for third-party engineering review comments. We've received those last week. Those comments have now been worked into the drawings. Once again, the engineering comments received were minor in nature. Really did not have any change on the site plan that we had previously prepared. And really the only comment that we had on the drawings that was of any significant change, and I can't even say it's significant, is just that we revised the sidewalks a little bit on the back side of the building just so that the door swings as they leave the structure had some additional space available. So with that, that's just where we were and where we're at now. I'll turn it back over to the board, and we have the entire design team here on the call this evening. So if there's any questions or comments that anyone might have, we'll be happy to try and answer those.
All right, do any members have any questions regarding this proposal?
Katie, this is Sarah. At the last meeting, we went through some of the exterior graphic slides. And it appeared that there is, in the renderings, it appears that there is more relief and texture on the facade than the floor plans imply. The floor plans suggest a very monolithic facade, and the renderings don't. So I'm wondering if the design team could talk us through what the design intent is, and maybe kind of update us on the progress of the exterior design.
John, Jen?
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
I'll take
you.
that. So yeah, the drawings are currently at a design development stage. The rendering is a professional rendering. It's a photorealistic rendering. The floor plans, they don't get into a great deal of detail at this point. And Sarah, as an architect, you know that we're always trying to not do stuff too early. We don't want to draw stuff that has to get redrawn, but the intent is to have some real surface change. One of the, I think, key concepts of our facade is having these piers that happen on a regular basis. The windows are going to be recessed from the surface that is in between those piers. So there's at least 3 levels of surface. We are planning on having a variety of materials, 2 different bricks, one to express the base, one to express the top of the building, and then the top of the building at the 5th floor. We have a 4-story section at the south end that then when it comes to the corner becomes 5 stories and accentuates that corner. That 5th story has kind of a lighter infill, a metal panel. That's, I don't know if that answers your questions or not. I know I saw in advance of this meeting, I saw your feedback. You had some questions about the consistency of the drawings and the rendering. So I don't know if that sufficiently answers your question or not.
So I appreciate that. So should we rely on what is being presented in the renderings, which suggests a significant amount of texture and are actually suggesting something kind of monumental and significant and permanent, but there's texture, and not rely on the floor plans, which are probably less developed? So because when I look at the floor plans, yeah, they look like early DD, and the exterior wall is one continuous wall.
The drawings that you looked at, were they rendered elevations or were they just technical drawings?
All of the above. So for example, the document I'm looking at, 12821, so presented at the January meeting, show colored elevations.
Okay. Yep.
But there is also an image, and the title of the slide is Proposed Perspective, and it's a beautiful photorealistic rendering, a corner view.
Yeah.
Which is, in my opinion, very satisfactory.
We're very pleased with it too, and our intention is to have the building look like that when it's done.
So know that oftentimes when presented to the City of Troy Planning Commission, renderings look suggesting more complex and more articulated design than what ends up being constructed, and that is my concern.
Sounds like you're referring to value engineering.
perfect terminology.
Yeah.
So
Well,
we want some assurance that this represents the building that will be constructed. And how do we get that?
well, I can give you my perspective, which is one perspective from the project team. And that is that we've invested a lot in this design. We feel that this is a strong design that embodies the principles that we set out to incorporate into this design, picking up on the fabric and the rhythm and the scale of the historic district just to the north of us. The materials, the details, the building technologies are contemporary technologies and assemblages, but we want to replicate that historic fabric in a way that's meaningful and so I'm attached to this design. I think this is a great way of doing what I just described, replicating that historic fabric in a contemporary building. So this is what we want to build. Value engineering is something that always comes into play. I can't off the top of my head say how much this building costs. We do have a cost estimate. So I mean, this is what we want to build. This is what we're proposing to build, and this is really what I hope gets built. I can't make any promises beyond that.
Understood. I can imagine I've been in your position before at some point.
Yeah.
So
I
thank you.
appreciate
I
that.
really appreciate it. So I think I would ask Andy, Aaron, Steve, maybe I'm jumping the gun here, but what I'd like to imagine is that we could put a condition on the future approval of this project that would require some sort of interface between the Planning Commission and the applicant in the event that some sort of value engineering exercise results in a building that doesn't look within reason like the renderings that have been presented.
Sarah, are you comfortable with the renderings as presented?
Yes.
Okay, so you could approve the application, and the condition would be you're specifically approving the renderings presented. That would require any change to the renderings to return to you to seek an amendment of their approval. So specifically condition any approval on the exact renderings that were submitted. You absolutely have that ability. That would trigger any change to it, would force them back to the commission for an amendment to the approval.
And I'm being very, very cynical here. Is it, whose responsibility is it to make sure that that happens? Probably the applicant, but given my proximity to the site, I will see it under construction. So and I don't mean to be so doubtful, but in the event that I observed construction of the skin of the building and it doesn't look like what was submitted, what's the recourse? It's terrible. I guess all I'm saying is let's not let that happen.
Right, but let me unfortunately go one further step with the cynicism. You would have the ability, the control mechanism would be the certificate of occupancy. Up until the CO, you would have the ability to say you haven't complied with your site plan approval. That's not the building we approved, and they would be forced to address it. It gets much more difficult to enforce any design changes that occur post certificate of occupancy. So if they put up the building that was approved, they get their CO, and then they do something else to the facade, it becomes much harder to enforce. I'm not saying it would be an easy process, but right up until the CO, you have the ability to ensure it complies with the renderings you approve.
Thank you, Andy. That's great.
So just so I understand, the approval that we get, whether it's tonight or at the next meeting, or I mean, hopefully tonight, is it based upon drawings that are plan drawings or renderings? What is the documentation that the approval is based upon?
Right. That's a great question, because it's again, in my opinion, with my one vote, I would suggest that it's based on the rendering, and I could cite what that rendering is. I don't think I would base approval on the floor plans because they are not consistent with the rendering. They may be scale wise, but they're floor plans that show one long.
Sarah, if I may, because my office will ultimately be responsible, the elevations, are those acceptable?
They are acceptable, but let us all note that they don't show the level of detail that the renderings do. I don't object to them, but they are not as rich with information as the renderings are.
Unfortunately, the elevations are the only item that we'll be able to enforce. The renderings will be subjective.
So that's helpful to know. Okay, so let me think about this for a moment as other people share their ideas and questions. John, thank you so much.
Sure.
And Aaron.
Well, I'm with Sarah. I like the proposed perspective very much. I think it does fulfill your desire to relate to the buildings of Troy, specifically the warehouse architecture, and it fits nicely by the riverfront, et cetera, et cetera. And I would hope as well that that is the building, or those are the buildings that you build, because they're good.
Sarah, in your professional experience, is there a way to conditional an approval based on the elevations that were submitted?
I would say yes.
Excellent.
So I'm just, I'm sorry, I have too many things open right now. I'm trying to find the elevations again and just to see if if there's perhaps notation that suggests that texture to the facade.
There's line work that indicates that. And I guess, Sarah, speaking architect to architect, what the degree of detail that you're asking for is really like and maybe it's early construction document information, but that's the level of detail that you're looking for to have confidence that the documentation, the technical documentation, will represent what's in the renderings. So just from my perspective, this early approval that we're trying to secure is something that happens, I would think, long before you would get to that point of detailed working drawings. I don't know if you disagree with that perspective or not.
I do.
You disagree or you don't disagree?
No, I agree. Okay. I agree.
Okay.
Okay, so.
Sorry, Dee Dee. Is there, John, you don't have your elevations on hand, do you?
I could share them, yes. Let me just figure
I
out
could
the
be
right.
Looking forever.
Let me see if I can get the right screen up and running. I'm hoping I have privileges to share the screen.
Oh, sure enough, I've found them.
Okay.
Exactly. So,
Yep.
so the only real change in facade plane that reads very clearly
Mhm.
are your piers, to me.
Yeah, there's a distinct, a hard line here. There's some shadow line that we're showing in the fenestration openings, especially these grouped fenestration openings. But yeah, the scale of the drawing is it's not going to show that level of detail that's that is indicated in the rendering. We are calling out the different materials. We're calling out the different brickwork, the metal panel.
So I think what would
floor plan that has the exterior wall?
Well, the floor plans that we have at this point they're not that detailed. The way you would illustrate something like this with this pier that's proud of this surface and the window recesses would really be like a 3/4 inch or 1.5 inch scale detail that's, it takes up a healthy, meaty part of a drawing sheet to show that detail. And we'll get there. We'll get to that level of drawing detail. But it's not something that you do at this stage in a project.
So two thoughts. One thing is jumping.
I'll just point out one thing here. See this note, 5-inch airspace with 9-inch deep wire tie. We have thought about this. We've thought about how this would get detailed. So this does indicate, sure, it's got 9-inch deep wire tie. What does that mean? It means that we have a very deep backup wall, or a very deep cavity for this portion of the wall. So we could maybe put a little bit more notation to that degree on these elevations.
I think that would be really helpful, even if it's setting. I've never done this, but setting a datum.
Zero plane and then a
yes,
depth. Yeah,
that would be so helpful.
Could that be a condition?
It could be, yes.
So we articulated the building 12 inches or 18 inches. We'll
tell you what dimensions were.
I'm not an architect, right? I'm a site guy, so I think of it in terms of topography. So you're looking for undulations of what? 1 foot?
Yeah.
Well, we don't have undulations of 1 foot. I think you should let us tell you what our dimensions are. That to me seems appropriate.
Yep, I really like that plan, and I would be satisfied with that. But I do have to mention one thing that I didn't notice before. Vinyl windows on this building are a real surprise, particularly at street level.
Well, at street level, we would have, we'd have, along the residential building, the residential units at the ground floor, yes. The street, the storefront, that would be aluminum.
And they're not security windows. And is there security screening?
We would probably have some security, some sort of measure at those ground floor windows. Yeah. I do have to say that we are, a lot of our projects are using PVC windows as a high performance envelope component.
And that wouldn't necessarily for stories, it's just.
You dropped away there for a second?
It's really just at street level that it's a concern to me.
Okay.
I wouldn't make it a condition. I would just think about, I would think about aluminum just at street level. Maybe your W-2s and that's it. Okay, I'm satisfied. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
All right, so any other questions, comments? All right, so Aaron, where do we want to go from here?
I think the board can act this evening.
Is the board ready to make a motion? We need to do seeker first, right?
Yes.
Correct. This is a type 1 action.
All right. So is the board ready to take action on seeker? Do we need to do anything? We have the long form that's been reviewed by Aaron. You've reviewed it, or Andy?
Yes, I've had, it's part of the packet, yes.
Yep. Okay, so how do we want to proceed? Looking for a
I will
motion?
make a motion. This is Sarah. I'll make a motion that the planning commission serve as lead agency.
I think we already are. Is that correct?
Excellent.
Yes, you're in a position where you can determine significance by issuing either a negative declaration or a positive declaration.
Good.
We don't
I
have
make a
to,
motion that we make a negative declaration on this project.
I second.
all right, going to a vote. Barbara Higbee,
Yes.
Suzanne Spellin,
Yes.
Sarah Wanger,
Yes.
Deirdre Rudolph, yes. Motion carries. So we're looking for another motion regarding approval or conditional approval.
And this is Sarah, and I make a motion that we approve the project with one condition, and that be that the applicant submits amended building elevations that identify the plain dimension of all building materials and surfaces.
Sarah, do you want to add something to the effect of the elevations as proposed or what needs to be built? Those are what you're approving?
Yes, let me rephrase that. Yes.
There'll be two conditions.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
I second.
All right, going to vote. Barbara Higbee? Yes. Suzanne Spellin?
Yes.
Sarah Wanger?
Yes.
And Deirdre Rudolph, yes. Motion carries 4-0. All right, is there any other business tonight that the board would like to talk about? I think it's very late. Past my bedtime. So I'll ask, is there a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Is there a second? And Barbara Higbee, second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you all.
Good night.